A knight suddenly finds himself riding a horse at full speed, completely disoriented by the sudden turn of events. He looks down at his gloved hands, beginning to recognize the cobblestone street that stretches out before him. Looking up, he sees a burning castle in town, a scene he shockingly identifies as being from EOE. This world is revealed to be Echoes of Eternity, a popular and well-known video game, also called EOE. It's a medieval fantasy RPG setting with a grand story spanning 2,000 years of light and darkness. The game is lauded as a masterpiece, featuring countless items and an incredibly diverse range of character classes. Its praised depth is so vast that new strategies are still being discovered 3 years after its initial release. The chaotic scene unfolding is from EOE's prologue, where heroes rush to defend a town under monster attack. He brings his horse to a sudden, ground-shaking halt amidst the destruction of the besieged town. However, as he observes the chaos, something feels deeply wrong and unsettling about the entire situation he's in. He is completely taken aback by the overwhelming realism of the world, far exceeding any game he's ever played. It's not merely the visuals. The sounds of battle and destruction all feel frighteningly authentic and immediate. A jarring question hits him. If this is really the game, why is he experiencing it from this perspective? He realizes there is no one in front of him, making it seem as if he himself is the character. A female knight he recognizes as Natalia Norfolk calls out to him for orders, addressing him as captain. He stares at the blonde beauty, his mind racing to process a game character speaking directly to him. His subordinates yell at him to pull himself together, confused by their captain's strange and sudden hesitation. Overwhelmed by the impossible circumstances, he begins to panic, wondering what in the world is going on. Then a horrifying realization dawns on him as he screams, recognizing that he has become the character Silva. Sweating and terrified, he desperately tries to think back and figure out how this could have possibly happened to him. His memory flashes back to stocking up on energy drinks, preparing to start a new game route in EOE. He then recalls seeing a woman about to be struck by a truck on his way back home from the store. Instinctively, he jumped to save her, but was hit instead, leading him to believe he was reincarnated. But he's furious, questioning why, out of all people, he had to be reincarnated as the character Silva. Silva is introduced as a powerful knight with cheat tier stats, seemingly perfect, but harboring one huge ruinous problem. His subordinate, Natalia, snaps him out of his reverie, urgently pleading for his orders amidst the chaos. Gathering his wits, he realizes his first and most important task is to successfully clear this dangerous prologue. He issues commands for his troops to protect the survivors, while he personally takes down the source of the attack. His soldiers respond with a unified cry. Accepting his new reality, he rides off alone, understanding that facing the boss is now his responsibility. He remembers that while he eliminates the boss, the game's actual protagonist is busy rescuing the main heroine. Suddenly, his attention is caught by an immediate threat from above, his eyes widening in alarm. Two massive bird-like monsters screech as they dive down from the sky, swooping in for an attack. He clicks his tongue in annoyance, bracing himself for the sudden and aggressive aerial assault. Rushing in on horseback, he momentarily doubts his own ability to fight against such a formidable creature. One of the monsters descends rapidly, talons extended, as he charges directly towards it without hesitation. His thoughts drift to his former peaceful life as a gamer, a stark contrast to his current deadly situation. Steeling his resolve, he grips his weapon, realizing that fighting is the only choice he has left. With a mighty battle cry, he unleashes a devastating swing of his lance, slicing the monster in two. He stands in stunned silence for a moment, shocked by his own strength and exclaiming, "Holy crap! I'm OP as hell!" He chuckles, realizing that immense power was just a basic attack, a testament to Silva's inherent strength. He recalls that Silva starts the game at level 60, while everyone else begins at a mere level 10. This massive level gap means that any low-level monsters spawning in the early game are utterly no match for him. With a look of sheer confidence, he declares that the monsters simply do not stand a chance against his power. His target is a dimensional fault, a tear in space from which the monsters emerge, and its destruction is paramount. He knows that destroying this rift will end the prologue, though he can't help but notice its creepy detail. Scanning the dark energy, he quickly locates his primary target lurking within the shadows of the rift. To close the rift and complete his role, he understands that he must defeat the formidable boss monster guarding it. Despite facing a giant beast several times his size, he feels a strange and complete absence of fear. With a confident grin and crackling aura, he fully embraces his new identity, accepting that he is now Silva. He realizes this body and mind are not his own. They are forged from countless battles and hardened by war. Crucially, as a player, he possesses the ultimate advantage. He knows exactly how overwhelmingly strong Silva truly is. The colossal beast lets out a deafening roar as it lunges forward, smashing the ground with immense force. In a blinding flash of movement, he unleashes a powerful signature skill, Punishment, Divine Piercing Strike. The attack connects perfectly, piercing straight through the massive monster's head with unstoppable force. He stands calmly over the defeated beast's dissolving corpse, the area now quiet after the decisive blow. A wry smile crosses his face, a brief moment of satisfaction before a more pressing concern comes to mind. However, his victory is short-lived, as there's still one huge problem that he must now confront. He remembers the game's unchangeable plot. At the climax of Chapter 1, the character Silva is destined to die. He recalls the game's plot, where Silva's sacrificial death is an unavoidable event that concludes Chapter 1. Despite fans petitioning for a survival route, the community eventually accepted Silva's unchangeable tragic fate. But now that he is living as Silva, he pets his horse and firmly refuses to accept that predetermined outcome. With grim determination in his eyes, he vows that having died once is enough. He will not die again here. His subordinate Natalia rides up to him, breaking his train of thought with a worried call to her captain. Shifting back into his role, he announces the rift is closed and immediately asks for a status report from her. Natalia confirms the town's monsters have been eliminated, and they are now securing the survivors, earning his praise. She then gushes with admiration, amazed that he was able to handle the powerful rift all by himself. She also confirms the safety of the game's protagonist, who has successfully protected the heroine during the attack. Later, the scene shifts to the 3rd Special Forces Unit headquarters within the royal capital of Aurora. Inside his office, he slumps over his desk in despair, overwhelmed by his situation and wondering what to do. He leans back in his chair, lamenting the cruel irony of being reincarnated as Silva, the one character doomed to die. Despite the world's realism, he summons a status window, questioning why these game-like mechanics still exist. He examines his status menu, acknowledging that his cheat tier stats are completely broken for this stage of the game. However, he knows Silva's weakness. His stats barely grow, and with no ability to change class, he has no potential. Though he is currently among the world's strongest, he concludes that facing his scripted death event alone is impossible. Looking up at the ceiling, he briefly and hopelessly considers the idea of simply running away from it all. But he knows the game's setting. If he flees, the protagonist or heroine will die instead, dooming the world. Grabbing his head in anguish, he realizes the situation is completely unwinnable, and he only has 1 month left. His trembling hand shows his fear, yet his gaze remains firm, fixed on the impossible challenge ahead. His desperate thoughts are suddenly interrupted as someone enters his office without warning. It is his vice captain, Natalia, who salutes sharply, here to report on their previous mission's follow-up. As she begins her report about the rescued girl, his mind drifts back to the game's original plot. He recalls how the heroine escapes, with the protagonist giving chase, leaving Silva to simply wait for his doom. The realization hits him like a physical blow. He's just passively following the script that leads to his death. A fire ignites in his eyes as he understands that he must formulate a plan to defy this predetermined fate. Snapping back to the present, he listens to her conclude her report and promptly dismisses her from his office. Once again alone, he leans back in his chair, the weight of his impossible situation settling back upon him. Just then, a new idea begins to form, a potential solution flashing through his mind with sudden clarity. He watches Natalia as she turns and walks towards the door, preparing to take her leave. His gaze follows her, and in that moment, the vague idea crystallizes into a concrete, albeit strange plan. He thinks that if Silva alone is not enough to survive, he will need the strength of others. Just before she exits, he suddenly yells for her to wait, causing her to turn back in surprise. Looking her directly in the eyes, he tells her with grave seriousness that he has an important favor to ask. Ever loyal, Natalia immediately salutes, eagerly telling him not to hesitate in asking for her assistance. With a strained and intense expression, he makes a completely unexpected and shocking request. Take off your clothes. Natalia is instantly frozen in place, her mind struggling to process the bizarre order from her captain. Her utter confusion manifests as a single, disbelieving sound, unable to comprehend what she just heard. Stammering, she asks him to repeat himself, only for him to yell the outrageous request a second time. Though completely flustered, she says she is prepared to obey if it is for the unit, but questions its necessity. Acknowledging her valid point, he calms down and agrees to explain his strange request in a step-by-step manner. He begins by telling her that he has always believed she would be better suited for a different role. With sudden intensity, he declares that her new vital role within the unit will be that of a dancer. Praising her past performance as a knight, he insists that from this day forward, she will shine as a dancer. The dancer class is a shaman that uses HP for skills, a perfect fit for Natalia's low spirit and high vitality. Sweating and completely shocked, Natalia asks if it's a joke, but he confirms he is being absolutely serious. He insists that she possesses a unique talent and that the unit desperately needs her to dance for them now. With a pained and downcast expression, she quietly responds that she understands his command. However, her tone quickly sharpens as she asks if this new assignment means she is no longer needed as a knight. Before he can explain further, she states that if that is his will, she will obey without question. Suddenly drawing a dagger, she screams that she followed him out of admiration and will now end her life. He lunges forward in a panic, grabbing her arm to desperately stop her from harming herself. In that moment of chaos, he suddenly recalls a critical detail about her character that he had completely forgotten. Her abysmally low spirit stat makes her one of the most mentally unstable characters in the entire game. She struggles against his hold, crying that if she is useless, she would rather go outside and die. She accuses him of wanting her to flaunt her body, but he frantically refutes her, yelling she is not useless. He desperately swears on the silver lance that he is asking because they truly need her unique strength to survive. His sacred oath instantly freezes her, her wide, tear-filled eyes staring at him in complete shock and disbelief. The silver lance is the unit's revered emblem, and swearing upon it is a ritual more binding than any contract. He holds her close, apologizing for the painful request but pleading for her to become a dancer for the unit's sake. Natalia expresses her doubts about becoming a dancer without any training, but he insists she has the talent. Overcome by his passionate sincerity and the sacred oath, she finally relents and agrees to his request. As she formally accepts the new role, the exhausted captain slumps onto his desk and orders her to change. He then presents her with a shockingly revealing dancer's outfit, much to her complete and utter astonishment. She protests that it won't suit her, but he counters by praising her body and insisting it will look good. With a reassuring smile, he gives her his personal guarantee that she will look absolutely incredible in it. Blushing, she sets aside the unit's needs for a moment and asks for his own personal opinion on the matter. His serious demeanor shatters as he erupts with pure, boyish enthusiasm, exclaiming how much he wants to see it. A short time later, she returns to the office, having nervously changed into the dancer's attire as he ordered. She stands before him in the revealing, flower-themed outfit, blushing as she asks if her appearance is acceptable. Giving a thumbs up and a wide grin, he declares her look absolutely perfect, another reason she's suited for the role. He thinks about a hidden game mechanic, the embarrassment coefficient, which boosts support skills for serious characters. Natalia's coefficient is an astonishing 1.5 times the normal value, making her support abilities incredibly potent. Furthermore, her powerful unique skill is now classified as a dancer ability, creating a perfect synergy for her. Following this success, he systematically uses his game knowledge to reassign optimal roles to his other unit members. After successfully reorganizing his main forces, he claps his hands together, preparing for the next crucial phase. His work isn't finished yet, however, as he acknowledges there are two more important individuals he must handle. The first of these key figures is the game's actual protagonist, a young but promising knight named Kyle Transient. The second is the sharp and resourceful supporting heroine, an elf known by the name of Mia Hawkeye. He reflects on his advantages as Silva, feeling confident that his deep game knowledge will let him change his fate. With renewed determination, he clenches his fist, vowing to struggle until the very end and defy his fate. The next day, he enters a room to find Kyle and Mia watching over the rescued girl, startling them both. He tells a surprised Kyle to remain seated, acknowledging his fatigue from taking care of the young survivor. Looking towards the bed with concern, he asks if the girl he rescued has shown any signs of waking up yet. Kyle confirms she is still unconscious, explaining that while she has no major injuries, she has yet to awaken. Reassuring them, Silva states that she seems to be resting peacefully and will surely wake up in due time. His gaze intensifies as he internally confirms his awareness of the girl's true and incredibly significant identity. She is Rhea, a reincarnated sage, and Kyle is her reincarnated guardian knight, fated to stop a resurrected evil god. The game's primary objective is for the two of them to restore their lost memories and reclaim their ancient powers. However, the evil god is actively sending monsters to kill them, and if either one dies, the world will be destroyed. This immense responsibility is why he cannot escape. He must survive his own death event to ensure their safety. Turning to the pair, he announces that he has come specifically to speak with the two of them about this. He first addresses Kyle, telling the young knight that he has something important that he wishes to give him. He then presents his iconic silver spear, placing the legendary weapon directly into Kyle's hands. Kyle's eyes widen in absolute shock as he recognizes the incredible item being offered to him. He immediately tries to refuse, shouting that he cannot possibly accept the captain's spear, the symbol of their troop. Silva knows this is necessary, as Kyle will need the spear's power to protect Rhea when she inevitably escapes. Despite Silva's insistence, a panicked Kyle continues to push the weapon away, unable to accept the honor. While he expected some resistance, Silva finds himself surprised by the sheer vehemence of Kyle's refusal. He sympathizes with the boy's feelings, but knows that time is running short and he must be convinced. Growing impatient, Silva dismisses the weapon's importance, telling Kyle it's just a spear and to accept it. He then pulls rank, declaring it a captain's order and a serious violation of protocol if Kyle continues to refuse. Finally relenting, Kyle takes the weapon, and Silva immediately compliments him on how great he looks with it. Seeking to seal the deal, Silva turns to a flustered Mia and asks for her opinion on the matter. Covering her blushing face, Mia shyly admits that she also thinks the impressive spear suits Kyle very well. Betrayed by his friend's agreement, Kyle is left speechless, while Silva looks on with triumphant satisfaction. With Kyle's issue settled, Silva then turns his attention to Mia, who looks nervous about what's coming next. He presents her with a small cross-shaped insignia, telling her that he wants her to accept this item. Mia holds the object in her hands, recognizing the captain's emblem, but remaining utterly confused by the gesture. With a confident wink, Silva points at her and makes a shocking declaration. From today onwards, you're the captain. She stares at the insignia in her hands, muttering the word captain in complete and utter disbelief. The reality of his words sinks in, causing her eyes to swirl as she is overwhelmed by total panic. Waving her hands frantically, she insists that there is absolutely no way she could possibly take on such a role. She continues to stammer in protest, completely overwhelmed by the sudden and immense responsibility thrust upon her. He needs her to level up quickly using the captain's EXP bonus to survive his upcoming unavoidable death event. Ignoring her protests, he calmly encourages her to simply try putting the captain's insignia on her shoulder. Mia argues that she is far too new to the troop to lead, having only just learned the soldiers' names. He offers a simple reassurance, telling her that he managed just fine and things will work out. He further simplifies the role by telling her she can just leave all the tedious office work to Natalia. As a final, irrefutable argument, he claims this decision is a prophecy from a sacred book, shocking Kyle. Mia repeats the words eternal tree with a look of pure shock, the weight of the divine command sinking in. In the Holy Empire, the eternal tree is revered as a god, and its will is considered the highest possible order. For a soldier, receiving an order from the tree is an absolute command that must be followed without question. A defeated Mia accepts the decision, while Silva adds that he received this prophecy from a shrine maiden just this morning. However, his inner monologue reveals the truth. The entire story about a prophecy from God is a complete fabrication. He knows there's no such thing as God's will, but he also knows it's a lie they will readily accept. Convinced by the divine prophecy, a dejected Mia turns to Kyle, asking what they should do now. Kyle offers his friend a comforting pat, encouraging the still protesting elf to do her best as the new captain. Kyle then asks the former captain what he plans to do, to which Silva reassures Mia she'll have plenty of support. With a casual wink, Silva announces that he was thinking of taking a little trip on his own. Having successfully handed over his responsibilities, he sets out from the capital on his crucial personal journey. He rides his horse at full gallop through a dense forest, putting distance between himself and his former unit. He reflects on the chaos he left behind, but is confident in his unit and glad his lie was so easily believed. However, his expression turns serious as he considers the true and daunting problem that lies ahead of him. The critical question is whether his army can grow strong enough in the mere 4 weeks before his death event. The success or failure of this gambit will ultimately determine whether he lives or dies in this new world. To ensure their success, he has formulated a plan for his journey, which consists of 3 main objectives. Firstly, he must become stronger himself, though he considers his own level-ups a secondary bonus due to his already high power. His second, more critical goal is to allow the low-level troop members to grow without him absorbing their experience. Finally, the third and primary aim of his solo journey is to seek out and recruit powerful new allies. He knows that depending on the method, it's possible to recruit extraordinary allies even within the first chapter. However, to get strong allies quickly, he must play with maximum efficiency, completing multiple stories and side quests simultaneously. As he contemplates his strategy, a desperate scream for help echoes from deep within the surrounding forest. Recognizing the situation as a potential game event, he halts his horse and mutters, "Speak of the devil!" He dismounts and stealthily makes his way through the dense foliage, moving towards the source of the commotion. With a quiet command, he instructs his horse to stay put, while he goes on ahead to investigate the disturbance. As he gets closer, a woman's terrified voice becomes clearer, pleading for someone to come and save her. He witnesses a horrifying scene as a young woman with torn clothes is being brutally accosted by monsters. The attackers are revealed to be a group of grotesque and leering goblins, intent on capturing the woman. He recalls that goblins in EOE use human females for reproduction, but this graphic event was never shown in-game. This brutal display serves as a grim and stark reminder that this is now his reality, not just a game. The woman continues to scream in terror, desperately trying to fight off her goblin assailants to no avail. He reflects that, as a gamer, he would have ignored this optional event to maintain efficiency and take the shortest route. However, faced with the grim reality of the situation, his hand instinctively clenches into a determined fist. The goblins continue their assault, completely unaware of the powerful presence that is now watching them. Stepping out from the shadows, he decides that he absolutely cannot ignore her plight and leave her to this fate. With cold fury in his eyes, he appears behind one of the goblins, his weapon drawn and ready to strike. In a flash of steel, he decapitates the first goblin before it can even react to his sudden appearance. Without pausing, he immediately strikes again, sending another goblin's head flying through the air with a clean cut. He then unleashes his full power, effortlessly cutting down the remaining goblins with a series of devastating attacks. He calmly watches as a goblin's weapon shatters harmlessly against his powerful defense. With a single heavy stomp, he effortlessly crushes another one of the monsters under his boot. His expression remains cold and focused, completely unfazed by the brutal, one-sided battle. Finally, he strides past the carnage, turning his attention to the terrified woman he just saved. She stares up at him from the ground, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and disbelief. The last of her attackers falls to the ground, its face frozen in a mask of pure terror. Completely overwhelmed by the ordeal, the woman finally collapses onto the blood-soaked forest floor. He kneels beside her, gently asking if she is all right amidst the aftermath of the fierce battle. She gazes up at her towering savior, a figure of immense power standing against the dark woods. His intense gaze remains steady as he assesses the situation, waiting for her to process her rescue. Her eyes well up with tears as she struggles to find words, still stunned by the sudden turn of events. He dismisses her questions, simply stating that he is a passerby and all the monsters have been defeated. Turning away, he internally curses the delay, frustrated that this unexpected rescue has cost him valuable time. As she tearfully thanks him for saving her life, a status window appears, revealing her game stats. He instantly analyzes her extremely weak stats, realizing she's just an NPC and not a potential strong ally. As he begins to walk away, she desperately calls out, pleading for a chance to repay his kindness. He dismisses her offer without a second thought, reiterating that he needs no repayment for his actions. She vehemently insists, declaring that not repaying a life debt would bring shame upon her reputation as a merchant. Annoyed by her persistence, he tells her he's in a hurry and advises her to quickly leave the dangerous forest. Without another word, he turns his back and walks away, leaving the rescued merchant kneeling in the clearing. The merchant girl reaches out, desperately pleading for him to wait and let her repay his kindness. However, he completely ignores her pleas, riding away on his horse without a single glance back. Leaving the dark forest far behind, he continues his urgent journey toward his true destination. He soon arrives at a grand city featuring a massive coliseum, relieved that he managed to make it on time. This impressive city is the Land of Fist, renowned throughout the kingdom as the sacred place of martial arts. Though this location has no connection to the main story, he knows it offers exclusive opportunities for early game players. He strides into the arena with a clear and singular purpose in mind for his visit to the city. Amidst the roar of the crowd, he resolves to use this opportunity to earn himself some much-needed money and fame. He knows that victory here is crucial, as it will raise his fame stat within the world of EOE. This stat directly relates to his reputation, granting access to special quests and better discounts as it increases. To achieve this, he has undertaken the arena's Path to Grandmaster, the best side quest for farming fame. This quest represents the ultimate fantasy for fighters, a chance to rise to the top using only their own strength. Inside the ring, he easily dominates his opponent, landing a powerful and decisive punch to the man's face. The crowd roars as the announcer declares Silva Pierce the winner of the match. As the announcer hypes up the mysterious newcomer, Silva calmly notes that this level of fighting is a piece of cake. After the fight, a cloaked official hands over his reward money, congratulating him on a job well done. Later, in a private room, he sits alone to examine the additional rewards he earned from his victory. He opens a small chest, looking inside to see what random item he has received for his efforts. He pulls out an accessory named Toe of the Great Runner, but seems thoroughly unimpressed by the item. He dismisses the lackluster reward as bad luck with RNG, knowing he's already gained something far more important. He looks at the large bag of coins won from the arena, satisfied that it should be more than enough. With his newfound funds, he heads to the city's main attraction for the evening, the extravagant casino, Fortune. This city of fighters becomes a gambler's paradise at night, and he has come here with only one goal. Losing his winnings, he exchanges his coins for a massive pile of casino chips at the main counter. He approaches a roulette table, his mind singularly focused on the task of rapidly accumulating more money. From dice to cards, every game presents an opportunity, and his sole intention is to win big tonight. While gambling is normally a poor way to earn money in-game, he knows of a realistic exception he can exploit. The exception lies within the simple game of blackjack, where players try to get as close to 21 as possible. With a confident smirk, he decides to stand, vowing to rake in a fortune before the night is over. After a long and profitable night of gambling, the sun finally begins to rise over the city walls. He casually exits the casino with a massive sack of winnings, remarking on how lucky he was. However, his success wasn't luck. The game's realism allows for a guaranteed winning strategy, card counting. Because the residents of this world are unaware of this technique, he can use it to make unlimited money. Though he still needs more funds, he's satisfied, having made the exact amount he planned to at the casino. Later, he finds his entry to another establishment blocked by a large and imposing guard. He then recognizes the person arguing with the guard. It's the very same merchant girl he saved in the forest. The guard is denying her entry, politely explaining that her tattered outfit does not meet their dress code. Suddenly, the girl spots him and excitedly points him out as the super strong guy who saved her. He feigns surprise, acting as though their meeting again is a complete and utter coincidence. With stars in her eyes, she eagerly asks him if he remembers her, desperate for his acknowledgement. Trying to dismiss her, he coolly claims not to know her and suggests she has him mistaken for someone else. She insists she would never forget her savior, catching herself for a moment before reaffirming her certainty. As he turns to leave, she desperately grabs his cloak, pleading with him not to ignore her and walk away. Realizing she's far more stubborn than he anticipated, he finds himself unable to easily shake her off. Finally losing his patience, he turns and bluntly reminds her of the grotesque goblin incident to confirm her identity. Blushing deeply, she admits her embarrassment at being remembered that way, but still asks him to stay away. Changing the subject, he expresses his surprise that she made it out of the monster-infested forest unharmed. She cheerfully explains that she simply followed the safe path created by his trail of defeated monsters. She also speculates the goblin blood covering her masked her scent, to which he dryly remarks on her luck. Overcome with joy and relief, she waves enthusiastically, exclaiming that she cannot possibly thank him enough. Still eager to leave, he impatiently asks if she is satisfied now, hoping to end their conversation. However, she grabs his cloak again, her persistence beginning to visibly annoy the powerful knight. She then turns her frustration on the guards, accusing them of discrimination and begging him for help. He calmly points to the establishment's rules, which state all entrants must wear clothes worth over 10,000 G. Her face falls in despair as she realizes her dream of getting rich quick has been dashed by the dress code. Sensing an opportunity, he changes his tone and asks her why she is so desperate to earn money. She explains that her lifelong dream is to open her own store in the capital, which is why she left home. Unfortunately, her journey has been nothing but a series of disasters. From goblin attacks to being barred from the casino, he stares at her in utter disbelief, internally questioning if she is an idiot for trying to gamble her way to wealth. Despite her foolishness, he notes her honesty and obedience, and a new plan begins to form in his mind. Seeing a perfect opportunity, he decides to use her, vowing to make her work for the money she needs. The merchant girl, completely taken aback by his sudden change in attitude, can only stammer in utter confusion. She questions his motives for helping her, but he simply dismisses her concerns, claiming it's just a whim. Cutting straight to the point and ignoring her protests, he asks for her name to formalize their arrangement. She enthusiastically introduces herself as Fierce, loudly promising that she will be in his care from now on. As they walk together through the arena's stone corridors, Silva begins to outline the next phase of his plan. He casually asks her how she intends to make money in a place like this, knowing the answer involves him. With a confident grin, he bluntly states that his simple plan is to beat people up for prize money. Ferris quickly puts the pieces together, assuming that he wants her to act as his cornerman during the fights. She excitedly boasts about her skill in throwing in the towel, completely misinterpreting her intended role. He immediately shuts her down, bluntly telling her that she has completely misunderstood what he needs her to do. He then thrusts the massive bag of casino winnings at her, ordering her to bet it all on him. Ferris immediately buckles under the weight of the enormous sack, exclaiming just how incredibly heavy it is. Straining to hold the bag, she asks in complete disbelief just how much money he won at the casino. He coolly informs her it's about 2 million G and casually warns her not to drop the small fortune. The sheer amount leaves Ferris absolutely paralyzed, her face contorted in a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. He immediately snaps at her, angrily telling the idiot not to shout such a large sum out loud in public. He gives her firm instructions to bet it all on his next 3 matches, a terrifying responsibility for her. Kneeling under the immense pressure and weight of the money, she weakly promises that she won't lose it. Having finally accepted her crucial role, she looks up and asks who he will be fighting in the upcoming match. Silva calmly reveals his opponent is the arena's grandmaster, leaving Ferris to process the shocking news. Fires immediately panics, screaming that fighting the grandmaster is an insane idea, but Silva seems unconcerned. She explains that everyone knows the undefeated champion, Tyron the Wicked, who has held his title for 3 years. Silva simply smiles, pointing out that Tyron's fearsome reputation is precisely why the betting odds will be so high. His cavalier attitude only makes Ferris more frantic, as she warns him that he could easily die in the ring. Tyron the Wicked is revealed to be a ruthless villain who controls the city through crime and dirty tactics. Unfazed, Silva calmly reassures her, stating he knows much more about the champion than she does. The scene shifts back to the roaring arena as Silva continues his climb through the tournament ranks. He effortlessly defeats another top ranker in a single moment, stunning the announcer with his overwhelming power. The excited announcer rushes forward with a microphone, attempting to get a post-victory interview with the rising star. However, Silva abruptly snatches the microphone from the announcer's hand, intending to address the crowd himself. He introduces himself and then openly mocks his opponents, declaring them weaker than the goblins he's fought. He continues his taunt, telling the stunned crowd he came all the way from the capital seeking a real challenge. He then deliberately disrespects the champion, feigning forgetfulness and dismissing the undefeated grandmaster as no big deal. His blatant disrespect enrages the crowd, with one spectator pointing out the champion has just arrived. Silva directly challenges Tyron, who watches from a private box, goading him to respond to the public insult. He continues to provoke the champion, shouting for him not to be scared and to come down and fight him. In his private box, an enraged Tyran smashes his glass, his fury ignited by the public humiliation. The Grandmaster glares down at the arena, his face a mask of pure rage as he sweats with indignation. Down in the ring, Silva smirks, his provocative plan having worked exactly as he intended. Later, the sound of heavy footsteps echoes through the stone corridors of the arena's backstage area. A frantic Firas bursts into Silva's waiting room, demanding to know what he did to provoke the champion. He stands calmly over a room full of defeated thugs, nonchalantly asking who these people are. Silva correctly deduces they were sent by Tyrion and turns to give Firas some last-minute instructions. He tells her to be careful and make sure nobody sees her, to which she nervously agrees. Following his orders, Firas goes to the betting counter and places the entire 2 million G on Silva to win. The massive arena is filled to capacity, with thousands of spectators eagerly awaiting the final match. As expected, the odds are overwhelmingly in favor of the undefeated champion, Tyrion the Wicked. Silva, however, remains completely confident and unconcerned, a slight smile playing on his lips. As he enters the arena, the Grandmaster Tyrion calls out to him, looking down on his much smaller opponent. Tyrion condescendingly praises Silva for making it this far, acknowledging he must be strong enough to pose a challenge. He then offers Silva a chance to swear fealty, promising to take him in if he retracts his insults. With a smug grin, Silva flatly declines, adding another insult by saying working with a troll would be unpopular. Claiming to be merciful, Tyrion offers him one final chance to reconsider his foolish decision. His patience finally breaks as he roars at Silva, demanding that he bow down and swear his loyalty. Silva remains completely unimpressed, telling the champion to cut the nonsense and just come at him already. He continues his taunts, questioning whether the champion's powerful hands are merely for show. Enraged, Tyrion screams that Silva will die here, as two large magic circles suddenly appear on the arena floor. Silva instantly recognizes the dirty trick, identifying them as magic circles that were buried ahead of time. He knows one is a binding field to slow him, and the other is a vulnerability field to lower his defense. He also observes that Tyrion is simultaneously being buffed by his hidden magicians, stacking the odds against him. Despite the disadvantage, Silva launches himself into the air, initiating the attack against the much larger opponent. In the stands, Firas and other onlookers watch in stunned silence, sweating with nervousness at the unfolding battle. However, he is suddenly blasted backward by an unseen force, crashing hard into the arena floor below. Tyrion follows up with a devastating punch that shatters the stone ground where Silva had just landed. The crowd erupts in a frenzy, completely captivated by the brutal and one-sided display of power. The massive champion cracks his knuckles, looking completely dominant after his initial devastating assault on his opponent. He then unleashes a furious barrage of powerful blows, pummeling Silva without giving him a chance to recover. After his relentless assault, Tyrion stands over Silva's seemingly defeated body, panting heavily from the exertion. Believing he has won, he raises his arms in triumph, boasting to the roaring crowd that he is the strongest. But a voice from the dust asks if he's done already, revealing a completely unharmed Silva standing behind him. Silva stands without a single scratch on him, a confident and knowing smirk on his face. He remains perfectly still, allowing the champion's surprise and confusion to grow as he processes the impossible sight. Internally, Silva is calmly calculating the exact amount of damage he just sustained from Tyrion's full-power assault. Touching his cheek, he nonchalantly notes that Tyrion's flurry dealt exactly 100 damage. Intrigued by the feeling, Tyrion screams in disbelief, utterly baffled as to how Silva could still be standing after taking his strongest attacks. Silva calmly thanks the champion, explaining that his cheap tricks actually provided some very useful combat data. A completely bewildered Tyrion stammers in confusion as Silva closes the distance between them with a menacing stride. With a predatory grin, Silva clarifies that Tyrion was exactly the kind of weakling he was looking for. The champion's confidence shatters completely as he screams in denial, refusing to believe he could possibly lose. With a final battle cry, Silva unleashes a single, decisive attack against the terrified Grandmaster. He delivers a single devastating punch, sending the champion flying across the entire arena with immense force. Tyrion crashes into the far wall with a thunderous impact that shatters the stone around him. Silva calmly brushes off his cloak, unfazed by the battle, as the announcer stands stunned in the background. The once undefeated champion is left embedded in the broken wall, completely knocked out from the single blow. The announcer, along with the entire crowd, is left completely speechless by the unbelievable display of power. From the betting stands, a jubilant Firas announces that Grandmaster Tyrion has lost consciousness and cannot continue. With the champion defeated, the announcer officially declares the mysterious newcomer, Silva Pierce, as the winner. Fyrus celebrates their massive winnings, ecstatically throwing wads of cash into the air with pure joy. Later, she apologizes for the mess, completely overwhelmed by the sight of more money than she's ever seen. Silva understands her reaction, acknowledging that most people would never see such a fortune in their entire lifetime. Still in disbelief, she questions how he can remain so calm when they are surrounded by 100 million G. She gestures around their cheap inn, asking why he isn't living a more luxurious lifestyle with his wealth. He simply eats a piece of jerky, nonchalantly stating that he doesn't really mind the simple food. She insists they should be in a fancy hotel, but he dismisses it as a waste of time. Fyrus imagines him living like a hero, surrounded by beautiful women and enjoying the perks of his newfound fame. Completely in awe, she calls him the strongest person in the world, questioning the source of his incredible power. He explains that he's not here to rest or enjoy himself, as he has a mountain of things to do. Her eyes widen as she asks if this means he has an even bigger, more important mission to complete. She begins to ask another question, her curiosity piqued by his mysterious purpose and overwhelming strength. Fyrus's eyes sparkle with pure admiration as she declares that his grand mission is incredibly impressive. Her sudden and intense praise catches him completely off guard, leaving him sweating and utterly confused. She passionately praises his selfless heroism, declaring that meeting him is the greatest thing to ever happen to her. Deeply moved by his perceived nobility, she bows low and sincerely begs to accompany him on his journey. He reminds her of her dream to open a store, but she insists that serving him is a far greater opportunity. He tries to dismiss her, saying she's overestimating him, but she desperately grabs his leg, pleading with him. Completely worn down by her stubborn and unwavering persistence, he lets out a weary sigh of resignation. Finally giving in, he reluctantly agrees to her request, causing her to erupt with pure, uncontainable joy. Before she can make another loud cheer, he quickly moves to cover her mouth, silencing her celebration. Holding her mouth shut, he asks where she's from, and she muffledly replies that she's from Madan Village. He recognizes Matin Village as an insignificant place he only remembers from the game for farming sheep materials. The seemingly random connection makes him suspicious, and he turns to her with a questioning and doubtful look. To test a theory, he shows her a paper with letters on it, but she can't read it, thinking it's foreign. He presses her on the matter, and she confirms that she is completely unable to read the strange symbols. Her inability to read the familiar letters confirms his suspicion, and his gaze sharpens with new understanding. Fyrus, however, remains completely oblivious to the meaning of his strange test, looking at him with confusion. He grabs her face, internally concluding that his initial suspicion of her being another reincarnator was incorrect. He makes her promise to do exactly as he says, and she eagerly agrees, ready to face any danger. With her mind now made up, she stares ahead with a look of unwavering determination and absolute loyalty. Despite her enthusiasm, Silva lets out another heavy sigh, seemingly burdened by his newly acquired, overeager follower. He accepts her offer with a warning, but Fyrus is overjoyed, promising to do anything to be of use. Silva smiles, thinking that this seemingly insignificant character may be the key to a new way to survive. Now his official follower, an eager Fyrus, asks him what grand adventure they will be embarking on next. She excitedly guesses they will vanquish evil or fight monsters, but he quickly shuts down her heroic fantasies. He reveals their true mission, to enjoy some wonderful shopping in the bustling city marketplace. Upon arriving at the main square, he immediately announces that it's time for them to split up. He instructs her to buy everything on a list he provided, telling her not to worry about the cost. As Fyrus runs off enthusiastically to complete her task, Silva turns his attention towards his own objective. He enters an equipment shop, his goal being to acquire specific gear he needs for the next stage of his plan. The game's equipment system involves enchanting items with random effects, creating various rarities and powers. However, crafting optimal gear is extremely difficult, as each piece is limited to a maximum of 6 effects. Inside the shop, his eyes land on the exact, unassuming weapon he has been searching for. He inspects the pricey, one-handed sword, noting it's a common item that can only hold a single effect. This is perfect for his plan, as with enough money, he can guarantee the exact effect he needs. The shopkeeper looks over the blade and quotes him a steep price of 200,000 G for the seemingly simple sword. Without a moment's hesitation, Silva slams a bag containing the full amount onto the shopkeeper's counter. After his purchase, he gathers the rest of the equipment he needs for the next phase of his preparations. With all the necessary items acquired, his expression becomes serious and determined, ready for the next step. He makes his way to a quiet back alley, a secluded spot away from the bustling main streets. Holding a sack filled with his new gear, he confirms that his equipment is finally in order. He reflects on his hectic new life, realizing he hasn't had a single moment of rest since he arrived. Despite his exhaustion, he steels himself and continues walking purposefully down a narrow city alleyway. Although he desperately wants to rest, he knows there is still more that must be accomplished before the day is over. He arrives at a secluded, unmarked door and knocks, his bag of newly acquired gear resting beside him. A slot in the door slides open, and a shadowy figure from within gruffly asks what he wants. Silva correctly identifies the man as the city's informant and makes a lighthearted joke about his profession. Cutting to the chase, the man in the shadows reluctantly asks what information Silva is looking to buy. With a serious expression, Silva states that he wants any and all available information on the syndicate. The informant's eye widens in pure shock and terror at the mere mention of the dangerous organization. He immediately denies knowing anything and attempts to close the slot, telling Silva to go somewhere else. Silva remains unfazed by the rejection, his expression calm as he remembers how this quest worked in the game. In EOE, a player would have to visit the informant countless times to slowly build trust and progress. However, having no time for such tedious methods, Silva places his hand on the wall beside the door. He activates a skill known as Lightning Blink, a short-range teleportation ability that bypasses physical obstacles. In a flash of light, he appears directly inside the room, completely startling the hooded informant. The informant stumbles back in terror, while Silva nonchalantly chides him for his poor customer service. Panicking, the informant continues to deny knowing anything, desperately pleading with Silva to just leave him alone. Silva calmly calls him a liar, promising to pay the proper fee if he just tells him what he knows. Recognizing Silva as the new arena champion, the informant wonders how he could possibly know his secrets. A flashback reveals the informant is his younger sister, and he's scolding her for getting into trouble again. The informant's sister asks why her brother is here, still confused by the situation in the flashback. Her eyes widen in shock as she looks at Silva, realizing he must have brought her brother to her. Silva reassures her, telling her to simply do everything he says, just as she's always done for her brother. Under his influence, the assassin Mitsuki meekly agrees, confirming that she always obeys her older brother's commands. It's revealed that Mitsuki is a human weapon, a deadly assassin created by the infamous Faceless Syndicate. Her inhuman abilities are so potent that she is guaranteed to successfully eliminate any target she is assigned. However, due to heavy drug use, her mentality is incredibly fragile, a weakness the Syndicate has a trick for. Silva explains he exploited her brainwashing, which makes her obey anyone who recites a few specific trigger words. Although he feels conflicted about using such a method, he now has a powerful and completely reliable companion. He celebrates his success, knowing Mitsuki is a high-level assassin, an incredibly strong ally at this early stage. Considering her an overpowered character, he offers his new companion some candy to build rapport. Mitsuki happily accepts the treat, showing a surprisingly childish and innocent side to her deadly personality. Now completely loyal, she eagerly asks for her next mission, even offering to kill someone for him. He calmly informs her that she doesn't have to kill people anymore, a statement that clearly surprises her. Suddenly, Silva clutches his arm in pain, telling a concerned Mitsuki that they need to return to the inn. He tries to dismiss her worries, assuring her that the wound he sustained is nothing serious. However, the bleeding status effect he's afflicted with deals significant damage that even his high endurance can't mitigate. He applies a thick ointment to the wound, wincing and exclaiming at the intense, stinging pain it causes. The wound instantly heals, but he curses in frustration, vowing never to get injured like that again. Finally done for the day, he collapses onto his bed, completely and utterly exhausted from his nonstop efforts. He warns her he won't be responsible, but she is ecstatic, promising to do anything to be of use. He smiles, believing this seemingly insignificant background character might be the key to a new game-breaking strategy. Later, Firas bursts back into the inn room, proudly announcing her return and readiness for her first henchman duties. Her energetic entrance is cut short when she spots Mitsuki sitting quietly in the room, demanding to know who she is. Mitsuki calmly asks her brother who the noisy girl is, causing Firas to freeze in shock at the term of endearment. Fyrus immediately misunderstands the situation, apologizing for interrupting their fetish play and trying to flee in embarrassment. Silva quickly clarifies the misunderstanding, calmly introducing the quiet assassin as his little sister Mitsuki. Mortified by her assumption, Fyrus apologizes again as he explains he just ran into his sister by chance. Fyrus introduces herself to Mitsuki as her brother's loyal henchman, bowing enthusiastically before the stoic assassin. The word henchman causes a visible twitch of annoyance in Silva's eye, but he decides to ignore it. Changing the subject, he asks Fyrus to show him the items she purchased during her shopping trip. She proudly presents a large bag filled with dozens of faceted, gem-like magic stones, awaiting his praise. He picks one up, inspecting the valuable enchanting material with a knowing and critical eye. Fyrus explains that, as instructed, she visited every material store in the city and bought their entire stock. Puffing out her chest, she eagerly seeks his approval, declaring her work a testament to her admiration. He casually crushes her hopes, stating that while it's a decent amount, they'll need about 10 times more. He tells her to rest, but to continue buying more tomorrow, leaving Fyrus completely exhausted by the daunting task. As Fyrus leaves, Mitsuki asks why that thing is following him, but he defends her, saying she has guts. Mitsuki quietly considers his words, her expression thoughtful as she processes his assessment of the merchant girl. He then turns to Mitsuki, telling her that he will need her help tomorrow as well and to rest up. Mitsuki nonchalantly agrees to get some rest for the night. The next day, she arrives at a syndicate warehouse, where a masked member notes her late arrival. Inside, the member stands over an unconscious man and demands that she explain the situation with her target. She reports that her target was stronger than anticipated, which caused the delay and the damage to her mask. Her superior furiously questions her decision, reminding her that her orders were explicitly to kill the target. She explains that the technology division gave a separate command to capture anyone with exceptionally high combat stats. The superior confirms she drugged and restrained the captive, who is revealed to be the informant from before. He dismisses the captive as no real threat, even if he were to regain consciousness. However, his eyes narrow with lingering suspicion as he continues to stare at her. He points out how rare it is for her to bring a target back alive, questioning if it's the first time. Another masked member confirms that there were no traces left behind from the altercation. The superior directly asks number 7 if she has experienced any abnormal changes in her mental state. Meanwhile, the captured informant, secretly Silva, worries that his control over Mitsuki could be overwritten by them. He fears that if a fight breaks out, she might just teleport away and abandon him here. However, Mitsuki internally reaffirms her complete loyalty, stating she will only ever obey her Oni-chan. Seemingly placated by her response, the superior tells her to take the prisoner to the cells and he will check later. But as he turns his back to leave, the other syndicate member suddenly lunges forward. A powerful strike connects with the unsuspecting superior. He grabs the superior from behind, catching him completely off guard with the sudden, treacherous attack. The force of the blow knocks a ribbon from the superior's hair as he is subdued. The traitorous member is revealed to be Silva, who dons the superior's mask and cloak as a disguise. Adjusting the new outfit, he remarks that it actually feels quite comfortable to wear. A concerned Mitsuki asks if he is okay, to which he replies that his clothes just got a little dirty. Praising her for being a good girl and worrying about him, he rewards her with a piece of candy. He then asks her to lead him to a specific location, and she promptly points the way forward. They proceed down a long metallic corridor deep within the syndicate's hidden base. Suddenly, another masked guard confronts them, but Silva immediately rushes forward to attack without a word. With a single powerful punch, he sends the guard crashing into the corridor wall. 2 more guards hear the noise and rush in, demanding to know what is happening. Silva effortlessly neutralizes the reinforcements, leaving them unconscious on the floor as he passes. He and Mitsuki calmly walk past the defeated guards, continuing deeper into the facility. He asks which cell holds their target, and Mitsuki confirms it's the one at the very end of the hall. The path leads them down a dark and narrow hallway lined with prison cells. They finally arrive at the last cell, where a disheveled, white-haired girl sits chained to the floor. The girl looks up with a defiant glare, asking if he is a new warden. She sarcastically requests hot soup and soft bread to celebrate their meeting. Silva clarifies he is not with her masked captors, telling her to ask the sleeping guard instead. Her eyes widen in confusion, questioning who he is if he's not one of them. Just then, Mitsuki peeks out from behind him, cheerfully greeting the prisoner as Akatsuki-chan. Akatsuki stares back with eyes full of pure shock, clearly recognizing her old acquaintance. Akatsuki frantically warns Mitsuki about the danger, but Mitsuki explains her Oni-chan brought her here. Hearing the term Oni-chan, Akatsuki's expression contorts with fury as she repeats the word. She grits her sharp, fang-like teeth, consumed by an uncontrollable rage. Straining against her chains, she lunges at Silva, accusing him of doing something terrible to her sister. Silva calmly tells the Mad Dog Princess to settle down, but she demands to know why Mitsuki calls him brother. She fiercely accuses him of using Mitsuki as he pleases and forcing her to kill people once again. He openly admits to making use of the brainwashing, offering no excuse for his actions. His admission only fuels her rage as she vows to kill him before he can make things any worse. He clarifies that he has not told Mitsuki to kill anyone, nor does he ever plan on doing so. Akatsuki refuses to believe him, screaming that he's just lying to trick and use her too. With a confident smirk, he asks if someone with eyes as clear as his would ever tell a lie. His eyes seem to sparkle as he holds her gaze, challenging her to see the truth. Akatsuki's sharp eyes stare intently back at him, analyzing his every expression. It's revealed Akatsuki is Mitsuki's twin, another human weapon, but was deemed a failure for her outbursts. After a moment of intense scrutiny, her anger fades into disbelief as she asks if he's really not lying. Her unique skill, Lie Breaker, allows her to detect falsehoods, making brainwashing ineffective and Silva's honesty clear. To be certain, Akatsuki turns to her sister and asks if this new Oni-chan has ordered any killings. Mitsuki recalls that while the previous Oni-chan ordered her to kill this one, she hasn't killed since. The confusing logic of one Oni-chan replacing another causes Mitsuki to clutch her head in pain. Silva gently pats her head, comforting her and telling her not to worry about it too much. Convinced he's telling the truth, Akatsuki concludes that he is not part of the syndicate. With a smirk, she calls him an idiot with zero sense of danger for breaking in all by himself. He retorts that he's an idiot here to save the other idiot who rebelled against her orders. Slightly taken aback by his words, she quietly asks him what he wants from her. He states plainly that he just wants her to help him out with something. With a confident grin, he reveals his unbelievably ambitious goal: taking over the entire syndicate. Suddenly, the sound of approaching footsteps echoes down the hallway, startling all three of them. A large group of syndicate members appears, vowing that the intruder will not get out of there alive. Akatsuki scoffs at his bold declaration, stating that he's just going to die here now. He calmly tells her to just watch as he faces down the approaching horde of assassins. Unleashing a devastating skill, he shouts "Judgment," completely obliterating the cell door and the guards. While Mitsuki cheers for his amazing power, Akatsuki is left completely speechless by the incredible display. Standing amid the destruction, he announces he knows where the boss is and is going to beat him up. He explains that he needs the syndicate's power for his own reasons and specifically requires her help. Extending a hand to her, he formally asks her to please help him take over the syndicate. She agrees to help him, but only if he promises her one thing in return. Her sole condition is that he must never make Mitsuki kill again, to which he readily agrees. She warns him that if he ever breaks that promise, she will personally kill him herself. With their deal officially struck, she focuses her own immense power into her restraints. Effortlessly shattering her chains, she confidently declares that she is officially in on his plan. Now free from her bonds, Akatsuki gives a long, satisfying stretch, ready for action. However, their path is immediately blocked by more syndicate members, demanding their surrender. Without hesitation, Akatsuki snatches a sword from Mitsuki, startling her and Silva. She then leaps into the fray, becoming a whirlwind of motion against the enemy forces. With a wild grin, she addresses Silva as Oni-chan, suggesting they should get along. Silva looks on with satisfaction, calmly stating that now all the necessary pieces are in place. He recognizes this as the final battle of the DLC, a crucial point in his strategy that he must not fail. With a determined grin, he declares it's time to begin the battle against the DLC's mastermind. The narrative flashes back to his strange and shocking request for Natalia to strip and become a dancer. Alone, a distraught Natalia leans against a wall, regretting her decision to accept his outrageous offer. She struggles with the command, unable to bear wearing clothes that cover so little skin, even for him. Nervously, she holds the small, revealing dancer's top, hesitating to put on the garment. Her expression is a mixture of pure shock and deep embarrassment at the unorthodox request. Completely overwhelmed, she shakes her head frantically, declaring the entire idea absolutely impossible. With renewed determination, she decides she must go talk to the captain and make him reconsider. But she remembers his intense gaze as he swore on the sacred silver spear that he needed her help. The memory of that sacred oath leaves her no choice but to obey his command. She realizes that going back on her word now would only bring her even more embarrassment. In order to keep her promise, she resolves to abandon her title and identity as a knight. With grim finality, she casts off her knightly armor, letting the pieces crash onto the floor. Stealing her resolve, she finally dons the revealing dancer's outfit. Looking at her reflection, she quietly wonders if she is truly better suited to be a dancer. She meticulously fastens the last piece of the new attire, completing her transformation. With a final accessory placed in her hair, her new look is complete. She nervously returns to Silva, apologizing for the wait, only to be met with his thumbs up of approval. Blushing, she asks if her appearance is acceptable, and he enthusiastically declares it's perfect. Returning to the present, Silva and the sisters arrive at their temporary hideout. Inside, Akatsuki lets out a sigh of pure relief, enjoying a long, hot bath. Silva waits patiently outside, remarking on how long it's been since he's had a proper bath himself. Suddenly, Akatsuki emerges from the bath, covered only by steam, much to Silva's utter shock. He questions if she has any shame, but she nonchalantly replies that she's far beyond that now. She explains that after her time with the syndicate, she no longer feels embarrassed by being seen naked. A flustered Silva yells for Mitsuki, who just brought him clothes, to grab some for her sister too. Mitsuki immediately scolds her twin, telling her she can't just walk around naked in front of people. She drags Akatsuki away, warning that brothers can look at their sisters with lewd eyes, annoying Silva. Their chaotic moment is abruptly interrupted as the front door bursts open with a loud crash. It's Furis, who enthusiastically shouts that she has finally returned from her errand. She freezes upon seeing the two identical sisters, asking if his little sister has somehow multiplied. Annoyed by the noise machine's return, Silva wearily explains that they are just twins. He confirms to Akatsuki that this is his subordinate, and Furis proudly introduces herself as Roma Furis. Akatsuki introduces herself, praising Furis as an excellent worker, which leaves the flustered merchant speechless. With this simple compliment, Akatsuki immediately establishes a clear hierarchy in their new relationship. Silva interrupts, asking Furis if she successfully acquired what he had asked for, to which she enthusiastically agrees. She dramatically dumps a massive sack of items onto the floor for him to inspect. After she explains she bought out every nearby city's stock, he praises her work, causing her to blush deeply. He questions her strange reaction, and she stammers that he has never praised her so directly before. Still flustered, she changes the subject, asking what the countless stones she gathered are actually used for. He holds one up, revealing that the mysterious items are simply called flash stones. To demonstrate their effect, he casually crushes one in his hand, creating a blinding flash of light. As Furis shields her eyes from the intense light, he offers a nonchalant apology for the sudden burst. Visibly shaken, she pleads with him not to surprise her like that, and again asks what they are for. He dismisses her question, simply thanking her for her hard work with a reassuring pat on the head. He then instructs her to remain on standby until he gives her another order, to which she reluctantly agrees. After sending Furis on her way, he closes the door to prepare for the next phase with the sisters. With all their preparations finally complete, Silva confidently announces that it's time for them to begin. Mitsuki smiles with quiet determination, knowing that the finale of this stage is about to begin. Akatsuki gives a confident wink, fully prepared for the final battle against the syndicate's mastermind. The trio rallies together, with Silva excitedly declaring it's time to get the DLC over and done with. The scene then shifts to a forest clearing, revealing a truly unbelievable and massive structure. The twin sisters can only stare in utter disbelief at the incredible sight that stands before them. They arrive at a remote village, and Akatsuki questions if the mastermind could really be in such a place. He chides her for being a worrywart, but she retorts that he should at least call her careful. She remains skeptical, pointing out that this remote village was not even marked on any of the maps. However, Silva confidently reassures them that their target is definitely here, based on several in-game clues. His certainty is based on a few subtle in-game factors that he has managed to piece together. The first clue was the syndicate's base location, which changes based on a random number generator in the game. The second clue was the specific set of equipment Mitsuki was wearing when he first recruited her. While she always wears the faceless assassin set, Her necklace randomly changes between 3 different varieties. Since she was wearing the plain necklace, he knows with absolute certainty the mastermind's base is in this location. Changing the subject, Akatsuki asks why he is suddenly wearing such a strange and bulky set of armor. He proudly shows off his new equipment, which Mitsuki immediately compliments, calling him cool. Praising her for being a good girl, unlike her sister, he rewards her with another piece of candy. A frustrated Akatsuki questions how he can act so carefree when they're about to face a powerful foe. Ignoring her concern, he leads them to an old stone well, announcing that their destination is right inside. Akatsuki stares at the seemingly ordinary well in complete disbelief, questioning if he is serious. The view down the well reveals a dark, ominous passage leading deep into the earth below. They descend into a massive underground cavern filled with strange crystals and a throne in the distance. Mitsuki looks around the vast, eerie space in wonder, remarking on how strange the place is. Suddenly, a disembodied voice echoes through the cavern, welcoming the visitors to its long, undisturbed mausoleum. Akatsuki immediately demands the voice show itself, while Silva smirks, confirming his target has appeared. Before them stands the leader of the syndicate, the final boss of the DLC. The voice addresses his creations, Akatsuki and Mitsuki, noting their betrayal with amusement. The twin sisters look on with nervous apprehension as the voice continues. He then turns his attention to their leader, correctly identifying him as Captain Silva Pierce. The cloaked syndicate mastermind finally reveals himself in his full, intimidating glory. He commends the Silver Wolf for his sharp nose, complimenting him on finding this hidden location. Silva internally geeks out, realizing this is a super rare line of dialogue he's never heard before. The boss dramatically monologues about the immense sacrifices and suffering Silva must have endured to reach him. However, Silva nonchalantly replies that it's only been 5 days, so he hasn't suffered much. His casual and unexpected response leaves the dramatic final boss completely and utterly confused. Attempting to regain his composure, the boss repeats his line about the immense suffering he must have faced. But Silva once again calmly clarifies that it has only been 5 days since he started. The bizarre exchange leaves the boss and the twin sisters in a state of confused silence. Ignoring the awkwardness, the mastermind praises Silva for his hard work in finally finding him. He continues his villainous speech, boasting about the many sacrifices he made to achieve his grand goal. With a triumphant cry, he declares that after all his efforts, he has finally achieved it. He commands them to behold his ultimate creation as the sisters look on with growing alarm. He reveals his ultimate weapon, a fragment of Telos, the god of destruction's immense power. Silva interrupts, annoyed, telling the bastard not to drop major story spoilers this early in the game. Ignoring him, the boss unleashes a powerful attack, telling the slaves of the Eternal Tree to watch. Silva's eyes narrow with intense focus, bracing for the final confrontation. The mastermind summons a destructive power he calls the Circle of the Great Tree. As the dark energy surges, the boss screams in uncontrollable agony from the transformation. His cloaked form begins to tear apart, revealing a monstrous and grotesque entity from within. A horrifying skeletal beast emerges, the true and immensely powerful final boss of the DLC. Silva recalls the boss's insanely high stats and varied, complicated attack patterns from the game. He also remembers its infamous difficulty, with insta-kill moves, annoying gimmicks, and 3 distinct phases. However, he states that's only true for a normal fight, which he has no intention of having. A worried Akatsuki looks at the fearsome beast, questioning if they can possibly win this fight. Silva flashes a confident grin, reassuringly asking if he doesn't look like he has it under control. Her doubts immediately vanish as she smiles, putting her full trust in his confident demeanor. The monstrous boss lets out a deafening roar, proclaiming the stirring of his new world. He declares that their deaths will finally bring an end to the boorish age of light. But Silva simply smirks, telling the boss he won't even get a turn in this fight. Suddenly, pillars of intense light erupt from the ground, catching the boss completely by surprise. The monster roars in confusion and pain, completely bewildered by the unexpected assault from below. Silva grits his teeth, continuing to channel the powerful light-based attack from the ground. The boss curses at the bastard, unable to move as the searing light continues to damage its form. It lets out another pained grunt, struggling against the relentless and inescapable barrage of light. As it boasts about its ultimate darkness, another surge of light cuts it off mid-sentence. Silva's strategy is revealed. The flash stones emit holy light, which inflicts a stun status on monsters. This stun is only supposed to work on low-level trash, but mysteriously affects the boss after it absorbs darkness. However, the boss exclaims his disbelief as the stun only lasts for a mere 0.75 seconds. With a zero point 0.4-second activation time, maintaining a continuous stun lock while fighting is incredibly difficult. But that's why his entire set of equipment is enchanted with attack speed, boosting his speed by 200%. This allows him to barely attack and reuse another flash stone, a fighting style the boss deems impossible. With a triumphant shout, Silva confirms that such a ridiculous strategy is indeed possible for him. He reveals he's prepared 431 flash stones, maniacally challenging the boss to endure the onslaught. The final boss screams in pure disbelief and horror at the absurd number of stones he has. Silva internally thanks Furies, who gathered far more stones than the 300 he actually needed for his plan. Enraged, the boss tells the little brat not to get carried away by his cheap trick. He manages to activate a skill, calling upon ancestral spirits to crush his enemies for him. The ground begins to break apart as the spirits of the dead are summoned from below. This stage's gimmick is revealed: the summoning of phantoms of past masterminds, an annoying mechanic. However, Silva simply shouts that it's too bad, completely unfazed by the new threat. The twin sisters step forward, confidently stating that they have a plan for these new enemies. As the skeletal spirits of past ancestors rise to destroy them, the sisters prepare to engage. With determined smiles, they confirm that they had already accounted for this specific gimmick. The twins immediately leap into action, jumping down to intercept the newly summoned skeletal phantoms. Mitsuki unleashes a powerful strike, effortlessly shattering one of the skeletal minions with a battle cry. Akatsuki finds the fight surprisingly easy, while her sister Mitsuki is simply having fun with it. Their success is due to Silva's briefing, which detailed the exact timing and order of the phantom summons. Armed with this crucial foreknowledge, they are able to easily intercept and seal each phantom as it appears. The boss roars in frustration at their cheesy strategy, questioning if they have any pride as knights. Silva shouts back that pride is a complete joke and utterly meaningless in the heat of battle. He continues his relentless assault on the boss, declaring that winning is the only thing that truly matters. With one final powerful slash, the entire cavern begins to shake violently from the force of his attack. He unleashes his devastating finishing blow with a thunderous and decisive battle cry. The boss cries out in disbelief as its form dissolves, lamenting the fall of the syndicate and his bloodline. With a final agonized scream, the final boss is completely obliterated in a massive explosion. After the blinding flash of light fades, the once chaotic cavern is left completely silent and empty. Wiping sweat from his brow, Silva lets out a relieved sigh, remarking on the long and grueling fight. While Akatsuki is stunned by their easy victory, Mitsuki simply says it was fun, earning a smug "told you" from Silva. He then points to an object on the ground, stating they need to retrieve it before anything else. Amidst the dust and rubble, they quickly locate the ornate staff the mastermind was carrying. Holding the recovered item, he smiles with satisfaction, announcing that their mission is now finally complete. The staff is revealed to be a powerful communication device used to control the entire syndicate from the shadows. With this powerful artifact now in his possession, he triumphantly declares his syndicate takeover is now complete. Having achieved this incredible victory, a thoughtful Akatsuki silently wonders what their next move will be. The sisters notice his sudden change in demeanor, asking him what is wrong with him. He reveals the truth of his identity, stating he used to be the captain of a national army unit. Before Mitsuki can ask about their next destination, he tells the sisters he has a request for them. He then proceeds to make his request, leaving the loyal Mitsuki momentarily surprised and confused. He tries to correct her, stating he's a captain and wants to formally invite them to join his unit. Mitsuki is completely baffled by the formal invitation, insisting it's only natural for her to stay with him. Her strange response leaves him sweating, wondering if the syndicate's brainwashing is truly gone or not. Akatsuki leans in, explaining that it is likely a mental defense mechanism kicking in to protect her. She theorizes that her subconscious is keeping the big brother persona to help her adjust to reality. With a sly look, Akatsuki playfully suggests that maybe her sister just genuinely likes him now. She points out he still needs their strength, so he'll have to put up with the brother-sister act for now. With a mischievous grin, she affectionately calls him Big Bro and tells him not to leave them behind. Defeated, he calls for Mitsuki and tells the now bonded sisters that it is time for them to head back. As they leave the ruined cavern, he curses under his breath, frustrated by how weird the situation has become. Back at the cave entrance, he warns the sisters to be ready for what's coming, as he won't go easy on them. His new plan is to use the immense power and vast resources of the syndicate they just acquired. With these resources, they can now rapidly enhance the strength of their original allies back at the capital. His gaze hardens with grim determination as he finalizes the next phase of his ambitious grand plan. With the syndicate's power now turned against its original purpose, he prepares to move on to the next stage. The scene then shifts to a dense, unfamiliar jungle, hinting at their mysterious next destination. The scene shifts back to Kyle's party, who are cautiously exploring a dark and ominous cave. Inside the pitch-black cavern, Kyle asks their new captain, Mia, if she has found anything of note. She confirms that it is still far too dark to see, a sentiment that Kyle shares with a sigh. However, their progress is abruptly halted as the rescued girl, Raya, suddenly tells them to hold on. She looks at them with an annoyed expression, complaining about them stopping so suddenly in the dark. A flustered Kyle apologizes, but also points out that her calling him annoying is a bit harsh. Mia reminds him that Raya ran from the barracks first, but Raya insists this wasn't how things were meant to go. She then snaps at a shocked Kyle, stating that she never once asked him to come chasing after her. Mia attempts to mediate the argument, reminding them to focus on escaping the dangerous cave together. Kyle continues to complain about Raya's attitude, as Mia pleads with everyone to just stay calm. Their bickering is cut short as a monstrous face appears from a crack, and Mia warns them to be quiet. Kyle's expression hardens with resolve as he finally recognizes the true gravity of their dangerous situation. He immediately apologizes to Raya for his part in their argument, admitting that it was his mistake. Gripping the powerful spear Silva gave him, he declares he will use it if anything happens to them. Raya remains unimpressed, however, questioning if his actual skills can match his impressive weapon and talk. Her taunt ignites Kyle's anger once more, forcing a stressed-out Mia to step between them again. Deciding to put their differences aside for now, the trio continues their journey deeper into the darkness. They venture further down the seemingly endless stone corridor, their path lit only by Mia's staff. After what feels like a full day of walking, an exhausted Mia asks just how long they've been going. Suddenly, Kyle's eyes widen as he spots something in the distance ahead, telling the others to look. At the end of the long, dark passage, they finally spot a glimmer of bright, welcoming daylight. As they approach the cave's exit, their expressions are a mixture of hope, relief, and exhaustion. Straining with effort, a hand reaches up and desperately claws at the edge of the opening. Kyle grits his teeth, pushing himself just a little bit further to escape the darkness below. His hand finally finds a firm grip on the grassy ground, pulling himself out of the deep hole. He collapses onto the ground, panting heavily but filled with the triumph of their successful escape. With renewed energy, he leaps to his feet and throws his arms up, celebrating that he finally made it out. Below, an ecstatic Mia celebrates their escape, while Raya calmly states she will drop a rope for them. A nervous Mia insists that Raya, as a civilian, should be the one to go up the rope first. However, Kyle impatiently tells her to stop arguing and just hurry up and climb the rope already. Without another word, Mia quickly scales the rope and pulls herself out onto the surface. She joyfully greets the sun, while Kyle teases her for being talked down by a civilian. Mia is still a bit flustered, reiterating that it was Raya who insisted she go first. They prepare to pull the last member of their party up, with Kyle offering to help her. Kyle then agrees with Mia that their most important task now is to figure out their current location. To get a better view of their surroundings, Mia begins to summon one of her animal companions. She sends her loyal hawk into the sky, asking it to scout the area for them. The majestic bird soars high above the dense forest, surveying the vast and unfamiliar landscape below. Down below, Raya holds out the rope to Kyle, her expression serious and expectant. He takes her hand to help her up, and she offers a simple, quiet word of thanks. As Kyle pulls Raya up, they both complain about their hands hurting from the ordeal. Raya then asks to see his hands for a moment, but he questions her strange request. He reluctantly shows her his scraped hand, complaining that it's too messed up for anyone to see. Ignoring his complaints, she gently takes his injured hand and closes her eyes in concentration. She begins to chant a mysterious incantation, summoning a brilliant sphere of light between her hands. A warm, sparkling light envelops his hand, leaving a stunned Kyle to wonder if it's some kind of magic. He looks at his hand in amazement, realizing the wound and even his old scar are completely gone. Mia asks if it was healing magic, and Raya vaguely confirms that it was something similar. Mia thanks her for helping, but Raya dismisses it as simple repayment for pulling her up. Kyle remarks there isn't a cute bone in her body, which nearly starts another argument between them. He tries to change the subject, saying they need to figure out their location, but then he freezes. His eyes widen in sheer terror as he senses an immense and immediate danger approaching. A monstrous, multi-eyed worm beast erupts from the hole, and Kyle yells for them to get back. Mia recognizes it as the planoworm from before, but this one is unnaturally large and grotesque. Kyle immediately takes command, ordering a panicked Mia to get her weapon ready for a fight. He steels himself, gripping his spear and declaring that as a soldier, a monster like this is nothing. With a determined battle cry, he charges headfirst towards the giant beast, vowing to take it down. However, he is instantly swatted away by the monster's powerful tail, sending him flying backward. He manages to block a follow-up attack with his spear, grunting from the immense force of the blow. Mia can only watch with a look of pure terror as Kyle struggles against the monster's overwhelming power. Mia unleashes a powerful magic spell, sending a circular shockwave toward the beast. The grotesque planoworm opens its massive, tooth-filled maw, ready to attack. Her spell connects with the monster's thrashing tail as Mia watches intently. The massive tail slams down hard, narrowly missing the nimble elf as she dodges. However, the force of the impact sends her tumbling to the ground with a sharp cry. Seeing his captain in danger, a horrified Kyle screams out her name in a panic. The massive worm beast lunges forward, intent on devouring the fallen Mia. Mia's hair flows wildly as she braces for the monster's seemingly unavoidable attack. But suddenly, magical chains erupt from the ground, binding the monster with a spell called stasis. Raya yells at a stunned Mia to run, while she holds the massive beast back. Mia agrees to flee, but her eyes suddenly widen in pure terror at a new, unseen danger. She screams a desperate warning as another tail whips towards an unsuspecting Rhea from the left. Rhea turns in shock, her face a mask of pure terror as the attack closes in. Just then a voice shouts, "Lightning blink!" as a brilliant flash of light appears between them. The skill distorts the very air, a blur of motion intervening at the last possible second. A cloaked figure teleports in, grabbing both Raya and Mia and pulling them to safety just in time. The mysterious and powerful savior is revealed to be none other than their former captain, Silva. He turns to his former subordinates with a calm and reassuring expression, asking if they are okay. Still facing the monster, Kyle stammers in utter disbelief, asking why his captain is here. With the twin assassins behind him, Silva tells Kyle they'll talk later and prepares for battle. Silva rallies his allies, declaring their intention to take down the roaring planoworm. Filled with false bravado, Kyle shouts that they can easily defeat such a weak monster. The massive beast lets out a guttural roar, preparing to continue its relentless assault. From a hidden vantage point, Silva calmly watches his former subordinates battling the monstrous creature. He confirms to his new companions that everything is going exactly according to his intricate plan. A concerned Furies sees the desperate struggle and asks why they aren't stepping in to help. He cryptically explains they must wait for the perfect moment to intervene, much to her confusion. Fyrus watches nervously as Kyle's party is clearly being overwhelmed by the powerful monster. She shudders in disgust, commenting on the grotesque and creepy tentacles the monster possesses. Getting annoyed by her commentary, Silva covers her mouth and orders her to stay quiet. Muffled and defeated, she reluctantly agrees to obey his command and remain silent. Silva continues to observe the unfolding battle with a calm, knowing expression on his face. He recalls this is a critical event where his timely rescue is scripted, but he must not act too soon. The story requires them to witness Raya's unique dimensional magic, a power only she, a reincarnated sage, can wield. Additionally, this moment of peril is a crucial step for developing the romance between Kyle and Raya. Akatsuki correctly deduces he has a reason for waiting, then asks about the identities of the fighters. With a confident grin, Silva begins to explain his strategic and somewhat selfish motivations. He reveals Kyle as a subordinate in the future hero, so saving him here will yield great rewards later. Akatsuki gives him a deadpan look, calling his self-serving reasoning the most suspicious thing she's ever heard. Just then, Raya casts her stasis spell, and Silva points, announcing the perfect moment has arrived. Seeing his opportunity, Silva yells for Mitsuki and Akatsuki to move in now. However, his eyes suddenly widen in shock as he realizes something is terribly wrong with the scene. He notices that Kyle is standing much further away from the immobilized monster than he should be. From this unexpected distance, he understands that Kyle will not be able to save Raya in time. He panics, wondering if giving Kyle the spear early made him stronger, thus changing his starting position. Realizing the monster will reach Raya at this rate, he knows he must intervene immediately. Deciding he has no other choice, he activates his lightning blink skill to teleport into the fight. He appears in a flash, deflecting the monster's attack and saving Mia and Raya at the last second. A stunned Kyle sees his former captain, asking in complete disbelief why he is here. Silva tells him they'll talk later, his full attention focused on taking down the massive monster. He notices Raya's shocked expression, internally noting her natural reaction to being saved by a stranger. Cursing his miscalculation in this make-or-break scenario, he resolves to deal with the consequences later. Turning to his new allies, he orders Mitsuki and Akatsuki to join the fray, surprising Raya. The massive planoworm lets out a deafening and blood-curdling shriek in response to the new threats. Without a moment's hesitation, Silva charges forward, kicking up a massive cloud of dust in his wake. He then launches himself high into the air with a single powerful leap from the ground. Soaring above the monster, he declares his intention to use the least amount of power possible for this. His eyes narrow with intense focus as he prepares to bring down a devastating attack from above. He shouts judgment, his attack striking a mysterious, hooded figure who was riding the beast back. The force of the blow sends the hooded figure flying, revealing the monster's hidden rider. The massive planoworm's central eye glares down at the heroes, ready to continue its attack. However, Mitsuki and Akatsuki immediately leap into action, charging the beast with incredible speed and power. With determined smiles, the twin assassins coordinate their movements, preparing for a combined assault. They strike the monster simultaneously from both sides, their weapons connecting with immense force. Their powerful pincer attack sends the massive beast reeling backwards, crashing heavily into the forest. Kyle watches the display in utter disbelief, completely stunned by the sisters' overwhelming strength. Now perched atop the defeated monster, Akatsuki casually calls out to the brown-haired guy with the spear. A confused Kyle points to himself, stammering as he asks if she is referring to him. She nonchalantly tells him to get over here and deliver the final blow to the weakened monster. Though still shocked by the turn of events, a determined Kyle raises Silva's spear high. With a final battle cry, he plunges the spear deep into the monster's eye, ending its life. Silva explains this was done so Kyle could receive the experience points instead of him. He seems relieved that at least that part of his plan went well, but another concern arises. He glances at Raya, who is staring at him intently, and is shocked to see her blushing. Internally panicking, he desperately tries to avoid thinking about the implications of her reaction. Meanwhile, Kyle rushes to Mia's side, who reassures him that she's fine thanks to Raya's help. Silva realizes this was supposed to be a key romantic scene between Kyle and Rhea. Instead, he finds himself awkwardly checking on Raya, who enthusiastically assures him that she is completely fine. Sweating profusely, Silva internally panics, wondering how he can possibly recover from this major plot deviation. An awkward Kyle then approaches Raya, trying to start a conversation, but she seems to avoid his gaze. Kyle stammers his thanks to Raya, and Silva internally cheers him on, hoping to salvage the romantic subplot. He silently pleads with the universe for them to just continue the story as it was originally written. Raya awkwardly accepts, but then asks about Silva, causing him to internally scream in pure frustration. He mentally chastises her for not playing the tsundere role, which would have pushed her closer to Kyle. Kyle explains that the man is Silva Pierce, the captain of the 3rd Special Task Force they belong to. Rhea's gaze sharpens with a newfound understanding and interest as she processes his identity as the captain. Mia formally thanks the captain for saving them, apologizing for breaking the rules and offering to accept punishment. However, Kyle steps in, taking full responsibility for the situation and deferring the discussion until their return. Silva ignores them, instead directly addressing the startled Raya as young lady to get her attention. He approaches her, stating with authority that he needs to ask her about the unique magic she just used. Though he doesn't know why she fled, he formally requests that she return with them to the capital. Internally, he celebrates as the scene finally matches the original game cutscene, praising its predictability. But before he can deliver his next line, Raya enthusiastically agrees, promising to go anywhere and tell him everything. Her complete and utter willingness throws him into a state of pure shock, derailing his plan entirely. Meanwhile, Kyle offers his shoulder to a blushing Mia, creating the romantic moment meant for Raya. Silva looks over in despair, realizing the wrong couple is having a bonding moment, completely ruining the plot. The sisters notice his horrified expression, asking their big brother why he looks like that. He quickly dismisses their concern with a flustered wave, insisting that everything is perfectly fine. Regaining his composure, he pats Firas on the head, ordering them to retrieve the horse for their trip to the capital. Ikatsuki agrees, leading a still confused Mitsuki to carry out their leader's next command. As Silva worries about fixing the plot, a blushing Raya timidly gets his attention. He turns to her, startled by her sudden and uncharacteristic shyness, and asks what she wants. She nervously asks if he would prefer her to call him Silva-san or Captain from now on. Trying to hide his internal panic, he gives a strained smile and tells her that either is fine. Giggling happily, she decides to stick with Captain, a reaction that is completely out of character for her. He internally screams, realizing her original personality is completely gone and everything has gone wrong. He notes with horror that her maidenly eyes, originally meant for Kyle, have been fixated on him instead. Walking away, he despairs over the grim realization that he has accidentally stolen the hero's love interest. Later, back at the barracks, the official debriefing about the incident begins in his office. Silva listens to Kyle's report, stating that the most important thing is that everyone returns safely. However, he still reprimands them for breaking rules, warning that their actions could have caused irreparable damage. A tearful Kyle admits that if the captain hadn't arrived, all three of them would be dead. Silva then questions Kyle about why he didn't report Raya's disappearance to Natalia before giving chase. Kyle agrees that he should have, but clenches his fist, hesitating to explain his reasoning. Seeing his subordinate's genuine remorse, Silva leans back in his chair with a sigh of resignation. Kyle is shocked when Silva nonchalantly says it can't be helped, simply stating all's well that ends well. He points out that if Kyle hadn't chased after her, Raya could have been in even greater trouble. Kyle is left speechless, unable to argue with his captain's somewhat unconventional but valid point. Silva leans back once more, casually repeating that under the circumstances, it simply couldn't be helped. He again insists all's well that ends well, leaving a stunned Kyle to process his captain's strange logic. Silva justifies Kyle's actions, pointing out that Raya could have been in even greater trouble alone. Though he understands the logic, Kyle remains conflicted about the risks he took. Silva tells him the real shame is not breaking rules, but being too weak to protect his comrades. With a reassuring smile, he advises Kyle to never be ashamed of sticking to what he believes is right. His captain's profound words leave the young knight stunned and deeply contemplative. Silva explains that one should follow their convictions, even against rules, laws, or divine prophecies. He passionately tells Kyle to listen to his heart, but also to accept responsibility for his choices. The advice resonates deeply with Kyle, who looks ahead with newfound determination in his eyes. Placing a hand on his shoulder, Silva concludes their man-to-man discussion. Deeply moved by the speech, Kyle emotionally salutes and vows to remember his captain's words. However, Silva's tone shifts, punishing Kyle with cleaning duty and a hellish new training course. A terrified Kyle begins to protest the strict training, completely caught off guard by the sudden shift. But at his captain's sharp tone, he immediately retracts his complaint and fully accepts the punishment. With a final salute, the thoroughly disciplined knight is officially dismissed from the office. Alone once again, Silva closes his eyes, his expression turning serious and thoughtful. He reflects that acting out the tense scene was a necessary step for Kyle's future development. Just as he prepares to get back to work, he is interrupted by someone entering his office. It is Rhea, who timidly peeks in and asks the captain if he has a moment to spare. He initially directs her to Natalia for supplies, but she clarifies that is not why she is here. Blushing, she shyly asks him which of the two task force uniform styles he personally likes the best. Internally, Silva screams in frustration, insisting that he really does not care which uniform she picks. He fumes over the intimate question, noting the two uniforms are practically identical anyway. Forcing a smile, he tells her that both would suit her fine and to just pick her favorite. Panicking, he realizes he must choose his words carefully, as upsetting her could lead to the world's destruction. He cautiously suggests the left one, and an overjoyed Raya immediately accepts his choice and rushes off. He laments turning her into a love-crazed maniac just before bumping into Kyle in the hallway. His thoughts are interrupted as an elegant woman with a commanding presence approaches him in the corridor. He recognizes the visitor as the priestess and playfully asks if she has come to ask him on a date. She curtly dismisses his joke, stating she is only here to collect the report on the recent fault disaster. He finds her excuse suspicious, wondering why the divine priestess would personally handle such a trivial task. She is Sol, the priestess of the eternal tree, who claims she was simply in the area on other business. However, Silva knows this pious persona is merely a mask for her true, far more sinister identity. He reveals her true name is Neon Eternia, a name holding immense and dangerous significance. With a dark, knowing smile, she is shockingly revealed to be the true final boss of the entire game. Sol stares at him with an unreadable expression, her presence marking the beginning of a new chapter. Noticing his intense gaze, she asks if there is something on his face that has caught his attention. Playing along, he smoothly compliments her, saying he was just admiring how beautiful she always looks. He then boldly invites her to have dinner with him sometime, knowing a good, quiet place they could go. She coolly accepts his offer, while he internally acknowledges that simply defeating her here and now is impossible. This is due to her bestow eternity skill, a technique that has granted her absolute immortality. He concludes that revealing his hand now would only worsen the situation, deciding to leave her be for now. The priestess mentions bumping into Raya, one of the rumored newcomers, in the hallway. Silva explains they rescued her on their last mission and are looking after her since she has no family. A dark glint appears in the priestess's eye as she processes this new information. She then changes the subject, bringing up the fact that his two little sisters have also joined the force. He casually explains they are twins who wish to stay together, so he allowed them to join. With a confident smirk, he guarantees their impressive abilities prove it was not an act of nepotism. The priestess looks down with a cold, unreadable expression, simply acknowledging his explanation. She encourages him to continue his good work, as more personnel are needed to combat the growing fault. He boasts that he works hard every day, a response she coolly praises as being very reliable. With her business seemingly concluded, the priestess confirms the report is in order and takes her leave. The office is quiet for a brief moment after the final boss's unsettling departure. Relieved to finally be alone, Silva prepares to get back to his mountain of tedious paperwork. However, he is interrupted yet again as Natalia, now in her dancer outfit, enters to report. She has come to question some of the documents he had signed off on before his departure. He recognizes the pile of applications as the last batch of paperwork he dealt with before leaving. Natalia clarifies she doesn't suspect him of anything, but she finds some of his decisions to be strange. For example, she points out that he rejected Tanis's simple application for equipment reparations. She finds this particularly odd, as that kind of request is normally approved without a second thought. His eyes widen in shock as he realizes his mistake, muttering that he definitely messed that one up. Natalia presents a massive stack of papers, explaining they are all applications he mistakenly denied. She clarifies that the sheer number of errors made her think he had some kind of secret plan. However, Silva is adamant, insisting that he remembers correctly approving the vast majority of them. His confident assertion leaves Natalia completely and utterly bewildered by his response. Thinking she is the one who is mistaken, he asks if she is simply exhausted from too much training. She dismisses his concern for her, pointing to the document as clear proof of his rejection. He snatches the paper from her in utter disbelief, still unable to process what he's seeing. Then a sudden and horrifying realization strikes him with the force of a physical blow. Sweating, he desperately asks her to confirm their approval system. A circle to approve, an X to deny. She calmly corrects him, stating that standard practice is the opposite. X is positive and circle is negative. The weight of his massive culture-based blunder finally hits him, and he screams in utter despair. He recalls that while EOE was made in Japan, it only ever had a single, worldwide global edition. Because the language defaulted to the global setting, he had overlooked a critical cultural difference. Unlike Japanese games, the global standard meant that the confirm and cancel buttons were inverted. Looking up in defeat, he laments his critical mistake, born from years of ingrained gaming habits. Natalia chalks it up to fatigue, but reminds him that all these documents were due days ago. Apologizing for the burden, she nevertheless insists he must review and correct the entire stack. He stares at the mountain of paperwork, asking in disbelief if she truly means all of them. With a deceptively sweet smile, she confirms that yes, every single one must be finished by today. Utterly defeated, he slumps at his desk, now faced with an impossible task born from a simple mistake. A brilliant idea strikes him. Since he made Hawkeye the new captain, he can just give her the paperwork. However, Natalia sees right through his scheme, menacingly asking what would happen if she took his joke seriously. Ignoring his excuses, she screams that he must review all the documents by the end of the day. She then storms out, demanding a future explanation for his vacation and his unauthorized new recruits. Left alone in his office, the now trapped Silva can only sit in stunned, defeated silence. Later that night, he's still working, muttering about how Circle is normally confirm and X is cancel. The scene shows the Army's Special Task Force headquarters, silent in the dead of night. A close-up reveals his exhausted eyes as he laments his utter and complete exhaustion from the ordeal. After working through the entire night, he finally stumbles out into the main corridor. His walk is interrupted as two figures around the corner spot him, with one calling out his name. He turns to see who it is, immediately noticing their impressively high-level status windows. Their powerful stats are displayed, identifying them as a paladin and a deadeye, both formidable fighters. Recognizing them, he casually greets the pair, who wave back with cheerful smiles. The woman, Captain Ceres Kobold, complains about his bluntness, demanding a more flattering greeting. The man, Captain Regulus Aslacian, greets his senpai warmly, praising his recent solo mission. Silva is thoroughly creeped out by Regulus's blushing, bluntly telling him to stop being weird. He notes they are both honors graduates and asks what the two of them are doing here. Without a word, Ceres suddenly grabs Regulus's arm, pulling him close to her. She then cheekily announces they are on a lovey-dovey date, much to Regulus's utter shock. As a flustered Regulus clarifies it's a meeting, Silva tiredly states he couldn't care less about their affair. Ceres continues to flirt with Regulus, telling him to give up on the mean Silva and be with her. However, Regulus firmly rejects her advances, professing that he only has eyes for his Silva senpai. Dejected by the rejection, Ceres turns to Silva, pleading for him to comfort her in his arms. She grabs onto him, begging him to hold her tight, just like he used to in the past. Thoroughly annoyed, Silva shoves her away, telling her to stop spouting such ridiculous nonsense. Unfazed, Ceres changes tactics, inviting him to come drink with them at their usual spot later. She then leaps onto him, excitedly shouting for them to get drunk and complain about the commander together. Their horseplay is cut short by a booming voice demanding to know who is making such a ruckus. The imposing commander of the Special Task Force, Volya Brown, appears, and the trio immediately salutes. He furiously repeats his question, demanding to know why they are causing such a commotion in the hallway. A nervous Ceres quickly tries to lie, claiming they were just discussing how great of a commander he is. He scoffs at her attempt, stating that mercenary upstarts like them could never comprehend his true greatness. Silva sarcastically agrees with the commander, while Regulus notes how weak Ceres is against authority figures. It's revealed Commander Brown is a corrupt official who secured his position through his family's powerful company. His entire job consists of being pampered by people seeking to make profitable deals with the military. The commander then turns his attention to Silva, insulting him by saying he thought he had died. With a confident wink, Silva retorts that clinging dearly to his life is his one and only strength. The commander laughs menacingly, wishing Silva had died, as it would mean a lot less work for him. He reaches out to grab Silva, but an enraged Regulus screams at him to stop, yelling he's going too far. Silva calmly places a hand on his subordinate's shoulder, telling the furious Regulus to calm down. The commander yells at them to stop loitering and go train the useless foot soldiers instead. Silva quickly dodges out of the way as the furious commander stomps past them down the hall. As he passes, a folded handkerchief falls unnoticed from the commander's pocket onto the floor. When Regulus tries to return it, the commander slaps his hand away, yelling at the commoner not to touch him. After the commander leaves, a concerned Regulus quietly picks up the discarded handkerchief from the floor. Silva mimes shooting himself in the head, his frustration with the corrupt commander clearly visible. Ceres remarks that he has grown up, noting that the old Silva would have started a fight. He dismisses her comment, stating the commander isn't worth getting worked up over. Internally, however, he cringes, remembering the old Silva's embarrassing past as a violent hooligan. Regulus questions how a man like that became commander, and Silva explains it's an unavoidable part of society. Ceres sighs dramatically, her previous energetic mood now completely gone after the encounter. She declares the pig bastard has ruined her mood and cancels their drinking plans, annoying Silva. With a cheerful wave and a final "see ya," she takes her leave and departs down the corridor. Regulus also prepares to leave, telling his senpai that he's glad they got to talk again. He turns and walks away, leaving Silva alone in the now quiet and empty hallway. Now finally by himself, Silva stands alone in the vast, empty corridor of the headquarters. His expression immediately shifts, becoming serious and focused as he prepares for his next move. He reveals a small circular device, stating that thanks to their distraction, he achieved his goal. The scene then shifts to the quiet, secluded exterior of an unfamiliar building at night. Inside, a lone woman in a nightgown stands silently at the end of a dimly lit hallway. Forrest, dressed as a housekeeper, excitedly greets Silva as he arrives at their hideout. She immediately begins to complain, demanding to know why she is the only one being treated like a maid. He explains it would look suspicious if 4 people joined at once, but she insists on a better job. Silva counters by stating her non-official status allows for freedom of movement that will be useful later. With a serious expression, he then declares that she is his indispensable right-hand woman, stunning her. Her eyes widen in complete and utter shock at the sudden and incredible promotion. Completely swayed by the new title, she blushes and reluctantly agrees that it can't be helped then. Changing the subject, he announces that he has come to give her a very special job. She eagerly asks what it is, nervously hoping it's not something as mundane as cleaning the barracks. He reveals her true mission: to use a set of special tools to tail a certain man. On a table, she examines a collection of strange devices, wondering what they could possibly be. He explains they are the legendary 7 tools of a spy, much to her astonishment. When she points out there aren't 7, he casually tells her not to sweat the small details. His gaze becomes serious as he reiterates that she will use these tools to investigate someone for him. Now completely intrigued, she excitedly asks who exactly he wants her to look into. Silva reveals her target is none other than the commander of the Special Task Force, Volya Brown. Fyrus is terrified, questioning why he would want her to investigate such a high-ranking official. He explains the commander is a nuisance he wants to remove, which she misinterprets as cleaning up corruption. Silva then thinks of Regulus, believing a much better person would take the commander's seat if he disappeared. He concludes that without Brown's greed in the way, the task force would get better missions and equipment. He confidently assures her that finding evidence will be easy, like striking an oil field. Fyrus is still in disbelief, finding it strange that such a corrupt person holds a high rank. He then begins to explain the functions of the spy tools, starting with a tracking device. The scene then shifts, showing a panoramic view of the bustling capital city streets below. Peering through a spyglass, Fyrus marvels at the strange and advanced tools the big city has. Now fully briefed, an excited Fyrus declares she understands everything and is ready to start. He gives her one final, serious warning, stressing the immense importance of this critical mission. With a cheerful salute, she eagerly dashes off to begin her surveillance of the commander. He watches her go, confident that getting the commander fired will advance his plans to the next stage. As the next chapter begins, he hopes his intricate plan will proceed without any unforeseen hitches. Deciding that worrying is pointless, he purposefully strides off to his next destination. He arrives at the training grounds to a surprising sight, his soldiers undergoing intense physical drills. Amused by the spectacle, he calls out to get the attention of the person in charge. Natalia, in her dancer outfit, is relentlessly pushing another soldier, yelling at her not to stop moving. The unit's motto is revealed to be meritocracy, where skill is valued above all else. Furthermore, the role of training instructor is determined by the winner of mock battles. The victor is obvious, as Natalia, despite her exhaustion, has clearly won the instructor position. She mercilessly berates a struggling soldier, calling his weak-kneed stance truly pathetic. Meanwhile, the twin assassins watch from the side, openly mocking the soldier's feeble efforts. The soldier curses his defeat at the hands of a cute little girl who tells him to take the training seriously. The twin sisters mercilessly taunt one of the soldiers, pushing him to do 100 more reps. Seething with rage and humiliation, the senior soldier curses the damn little brats under his breath. Silva watches the chaotic scene, feeling a strange new desire awaken within him that he quickly dismisses. However, the humiliation of being defeated by teenage newcomers seems to have fired up the other squad members. A new competitive fire burns in the eyes of the veteran soldiers, their motivation reignited. He observes their progress with a grim look, knowing his comrades must become stronger for what's to come. Later, he approaches an exhausted Natalia, teasing her for being on the receiving end of the training. Panting for breath, she looks up and asks her captain who in the world these powerful newcomers are. He proudly introduces them as his cute little sisters, their overwhelming strength proving his point. From the ground, a confused Natalia points out that she has never heard him mention having sisters before. He laughs it off, casually explaining that it's because this is the very first time he's ever mentioned it. He then tells her this defeat means she has a long way to go, and she readily admits her weakness. While he considers telling her to retrain from scratch, his expression shows he has another plan. He criticizes her training methods, specifically questioning why she is doing basic squats as a dancer. His eyes narrow as he begins to lecture her on her fundamental misunderstanding of her new role. When she defines her role as vice captain, he furiously cuts her off, shouting that she is wrong. He passionately reminds her that her primary role now is not as a knight, but as a dancer. Her embarrassed posture disappoints him as he realizes she still hasn't grasped her new purpose. Believing she lacks self-awareness, he decides her current mindset requires some immediate and direct correction. Leaning in close, he asks her a simple, pointed question. What is the role of a dancer in combat? She correctly explains a dancer's role is to offer a prayerful dance and return the obtained mana to others. He praises her for getting it, and she confirms she did her own research while he was away. However, his demeanor darkens as he furiously questions if she truly has a grasp of it. He yells that the gods would never be satisfied by her pathetic squats, demanding a real dance. A flustered Natalia admits she doesn't know what to do, as nothing like this was in the manuals. He tells her to listen up as he prepares to reveal the single most important factor for pleasing the gods. Nervously clutching her top, she looks up and asks what this all-important thing could possibly be. With a dramatic pose, he declares the secret is the twist, explaining its fundamental importance in all movements. The realization hits her as she understands he means twisting her hips, the center of her body. He concludes that twisting her hips is therefore the first step toward a dance that will satisfy the gods. Now that she theoretically understands, he announces it's time for her to put it into practice. The scene shifts to a serene forest, where he declares it's time for her special training to begin. She nervously tries to add a twist to her pose, tentatively asking if this is what he means. He immediately shuts her down, yelling, "It's the same squats," and ordering her to twist her hips. Still not satisfied, he screams that it's not nearly enough, claiming the gods themselves are telling him. He adds that the gods would be more excited watching dragonflies mate, a comment that clearly wounds her. As she tries again, he pushes her relentlessly, demanding more heat and more unrestrained passion from her. Completely flustered and blushing, she stammers, unsure of what he means by the word passionately. He urges her not to be shy and to completely surrender herself to her hidden, inner passion. As an example, he tells her to channel the feeling of being held by the man she loves. Blushing, Natalia explains she has no such experience, as the man she loves is dense and doesn't see her as a woman. He dismisses her excuses, ordering her to use her imagination and think of a night she longed for warmth. Getting angry, he yells at her to stop playing the innocent little girl, insisting she has had those nights. Completely flustered and overcome by his intense words, she can only let out a small, embarrassed sound. Finally surrendering to her passion, she strikes a dramatic and sensual pose, asking if this is what he wanted. With a satisfied smile, he praises her, saying that she can do it if she just tries. He claims her dance is so powerful that even the gods have started to take notice of her. Motivated by his praise, she eagerly responds with a sharp and enthusiastic salute to her captain. However, he immediately corrects her, ordering her to call him director now, and she readily agrees. As her new director, he crudely yells at her to learn how to move her ass freely and without restraint. His passionate speech is cut short as he is suddenly struck on the head from behind. It's Akatsuki, who sternly scolds him for getting too carried away, forcing a sheepish apology from him. Later, after a long day of intense training, the sun begins to set over the barracks. A group of utterly exhausted soldiers, led by the prominent figure of Tanis, stand defeated. Silva lets out a tired sigh, seemingly observing the aftermath of the day's grueling session. He approaches an equally exhausted Kyle, informing the young knight that he's not done yet. A completely startled Kyle turns to him, asking what he could possibly mean by that. Silva stands before him with a serious and determined look, a sword now held in his hand. Without another word, he suddenly draws the sword with a swift, decisive motion. He then leaps into the air, launching a surprise attack against the completely unprepared Kyle. Reacting just in time, Kyle manages to parry the sudden and aggressive sword strike from his captain. Silva calmly reveals his true intention. Kyle is staying behind for a one-on-one mock battle. Kyle is stunned by the offer, calling it an honor, but hesitating due to his extreme exhaustion. With trembling legs, he pleads that he's already at his limit and will surely die if he continues. However, Silva reminds him this special training is his promised punishment for breaking the squad's rules. Without another word, he attacks again, effortlessly sending the outmatched Kyle flying across the training ground. The young knight collapses to the ground, crying out in pain from the overwhelming force of the blow. Looking down at him, Silva taunts his subordinate, asking if he is ready to give up already. But Kyle's eyes burn with resolve. He acknowledges their power gap, but vows not to hold back. Silva internally notes that due to experience point mechanics, it's difficult to support Kyle in real battles. However, a mock battle against a high-level opponent allows Kyle to gain massive experience, even in defeat. He recalls that in the game, Silva's personality limited these battles, but now he is Silva. This means he can continue this power-leveling session for as long as time and stamina allow. His goal is to get Kyle to at least level 30 before the end of Chapter 2's time limit. Unfortunately, he knows the efficiency of mock battles drops drastically for Kyle after he reaches level 20. While considering his options, he wishes a better idea for leveling Kyle would just fall from the sky. The relentless training continues, with Kyle once again being knocked down hard onto the ground. As Silva watches, the battered and bruised Kyle struggles to pick himself back up from the dirt. Despite his pain, he insists he can still go, not wanting to waste his captain's valuable time. Seeing his subordinate's pitiful state, Silva decides to call a break for now, much to Kyle's surprise. Despite his exhaustion, Kyle insists he doesn't need a break and is still good to continue training. Silva seems ready to agree, but his attention is suddenly caught by an unexpected visitor. It's Mia and Raya, and he jokes he can't bully Kyle in front of a cute girl. A flustered Kyle turns and asks Mia what she is doing here on the training grounds. He tries to tell her not to interrupt, but Silva quickly smacks him on the head. Silva then whispers that she doesn't want to see him getting his butt kicked and looking uncool. Blushing, Mia explains she heard they were training and thought they might be hungry after all their work. She shyly offers them some rice balls she made, asking if she was interrupting them. Kyle is left completely stunned and speechless by her kind and thoughtful gesture. Observing the budding romance, Silva watches the scene unfold with a satisfied smile. Finally breaking the awkward silence, a flustered Kyle agrees to have one of the rice balls. However, his own romantic crisis resumes as Rhea timidly approaches him to get his attention. With a deep blush, she also offers him a rice ball, asking him to please have one. Her continued affection sends Silva into a state of sheer, unadulterated internal panic. He considers rejecting her to fix the plot, but worries it might break her spirit completely. Seeing his hesitation, a disappointed Rhea asks if he isn't hungry, her face falling. Fearing the world-ending consequences, he quickly changes his mind and gratefully accepts her offer. Meanwhile, Kyle bites into Mia's rice ball and declares it delicious, much to her delight. He then compliments her cooking skills and asks what kind of fillings she used for them. Mia happily explains it's a fish recipe taught to her by the vice director, Natalia. Annoyed by the budding romance, Silva decides he must intervene and make some course corrections. But just as he's about to act, a new brilliant idea suddenly flashes through his mind. He realizes he can use this situation to his advantage by combining it with a specific skill. His gaze shifts to Kyle, a new and ambitious strategy beginning to take shape. Fired up by Mia's presence, a determined Kyle asks his captain for one more round of training. Silva holds up a hand, telling the eager young knight to wait before they resume their battle. He then turns to a surprised Mia, stating that he actually has something he wants to discuss with her. With a serious and intense expression, he addresses her by her full name, Mia Hawkeye. Completely taken aback by his sudden shift in tone, a flustered Mia can only stammer a response. Taking her hand, he then makes a completely unexpected request, for her to go on a date with him. His shocking proposal is met with a moment of stunned and complete silence from everyone present. The elf girl trembles uncontrollably, unable to process the captain's outrageous words. Kyle's eyes widen in pure, unadulterated shock as he struggles to comprehend the situation. Finally finding their voices, both Mia and Kyle scream out the word date in unison. Kyle demands to know what's gotten into him, but Silva coolly asks if he needs a reason. The young knight argues there are far more suitable women for him, as a dejected Raya looks on. He suggests Natalia or Ceres, dismissing Mia as just a kid in comparison to the other captains. Silva notes his harsh words while Mia looks completely crushed by the unintentional insult. However, Silva counters that Mia's timid and earnest qualities are precisely what make her charming. Kyle argues that this is out of the blue, but Silva explains charm is something you notice suddenly. Silva shuts Kyle down, stating that Mia is the one who gets to decide her own fate. Defeated, Kyle tightens his grip on his weapon, acknowledging that his captain is right. Seizing the opportunity, Silva proposes a match. He and Kyle will fight for the right to date Mia. He then sets the generous terms. Kyle has 2 weeks to land a single hit on him to win. Kyle immediately protests, pointing out that Mia herself has not even agreed to this arrangement. In response, Silva simply turns to Mia with a knowing and confident wink. Her eyes widen as she instantly understands the true meaning behind his unspoken gesture. Turning to a stunned Kyle, she suddenly and passionately shouts out his name with newfound determination. With tears in her eyes, she encourages him to accept the challenge, reassuring him that she will be fine. Her sudden and complete agreement leaves the already stressed-out Kyle utterly speechless and confused. Silva internally praises her, noting that she is a very sharp kid for understanding his true intent. She correctly interpreted his wink as a sign that he was acting as her captain to help her. His true plan is revealed. Pushing Kyle to his limits is the most efficient way to maximize his stat growth. Since his Rhea plan failed, he will now mentally corner Kyle by threatening to steal his childhood friend. A worried Kyle asks what will happen if he loses, and Silva confirms his unspoken fear. However, Mia offers him a beautiful smile, telling him that she believes in him and knows he can win. Deeply moved by her unwavering faith in him, Kyle can only whisper her name in response. With her consent secured, Silva declares a 2-week, non-stop battlefield where anything goes. He then turns to Kyle with a final, condescending question, asking if he is really sure about this. With a predatory grin, he challenges Kyle to come at him anytime, vowing to crush him every single time. With his resolve solidified, Kyle accepts the impossible challenge with a passionate and determined battle cry. And so, the relentless and grueling 2-week battle for Mia's affection officially begins between them. On the very first day, the all-out war between the two knights immediately kicks off. Silva launches a surprise attack on Kyle during lunch, throwing a mysterious object at his face. The object explodes in a blinding flash of light, completely disorienting the unsuspecting Kyle. While he is distracted, Silva lunges forward with a dagger, aiming for a decisive opening strike. He then effortlessly dodges Kyle's counterattack and lands a humiliating slap across his face. The first day's assault ends with a swift, indecisive kick from the overwhelmingly powerful captain. On the second day, Kyle attempts a sneak attack while Silva is sleeping, only to be easily thwarted. Silva effortlessly smothers the young knight with a pillow, completely neutralizing his desperate assassination attempt. The third day sees the battle shift back to the crowded and chaotic public training grounds. The twin assassins easily dominate the veteran soldiers, mocking their hopeless weakness in front of everyone. As an enraged soldier yells at the brats, Silva uses the distraction to launch another surprise attack. He lands another solid, undefended kick to Kyle's side, sending him stumbling in pain. The intense battle continues, and the scene then jumps forward to the fourth day of the bet. Another veteran soldier, Tanis, is shown easily defeating the now completely exhausted Kyle in a duel. Tanis stands over his fallen opponent, asking the battered Kyle if he wants to call it a day. However, Silva appears, calling Kyle's efforts pathetic and mocking his inability to land a single hit. He taunts him further, stating that at this rate, it will be impossible for him to win. As a final psychological blow, he announces he will start planning his date with Mia now. He meticulously describes their romantic date, from a play to a fancy dinner, to further torment Kyle. However, a defiant Kyle gets back up, declaring that, with 10 days left, he will absolutely win. Silva is impressed, noting that while Kyle's stamina is low, his mental fortitude is the real deal. He concludes that training has reached its limit. Kyle now needs real, risky battles to grow stronger. With a grimace, he acknowledges the boy's unwavering spirit and the need for a new approach. He sees in Kyle's eyes that this level of hell is nowhere near enough to truly break him. Deciding to escalate, Silva resolves to have him experience a real hell in their next training phase. The scene flashes back to Kyle training relentlessly, honing his skills with a determined battle cry. He recalls Silva's challenge: land a single hit within 2 weeks to claim victory in their bet. The grueling and seemingly endless training montage continues with both fighters giving it their all. Kyle then remembers the stakes, panicking as he realizes the winner gets a date with Mia. Back in the present, an exhausted Kyle begins to doubt himself, wondering why he is trying so hard. He compares himself to the captain, admitting Silva is stronger, cooler, and more experienced with women. His confidence shatters as he concludes Mia would be better off protected by the captain instead of him. The narrative then flashes back 10 years, showing a single dewdrop on a leaf in a forest. In the past, a group of young boys are shown cruelly bullying a small girl in their village. One of the bullies viciously yells at her to get out, calling her a disgusting half-elf. The girl, a young Mia, is told not to bring her filthy blood into their presence. Suddenly, a young boy appears with a wooden sword, demanding to know what they are doing. The bullies recognize their interruption as a young but determined Kyle, ready to defend his friend. After a brief scuffle, the young bullies curse as they are forced to flee into the forest. Kyle extends a helping hand to the fallen Mia, gently reassuring her that it's okay now. With a bright and confident smile, he tells his crying friend not to worry about anything. Looking her directly in the eyes, he makes a solemn vow that he will always protect her. Visibly moved by his heartfelt promise, the young Mia accepts his outstretched hand. Back in the present, a weary Kyle laughs, remembering the childhood promise he made to her. Calling his past self pathetic, a new fire ignites in his eyes as his resolve hardens. His entire demeanor shifts as he prepares to face his captain with renewed determination. With a surge of strength, he successfully blocks a heavy blow from a surprised Silva. He then leaps over his captain, unleashing a surprisingly fast and powerful counterattack from above. With a furious battle cry, he brings his weapon down in a devastating overhead strike. The force of his relentless assault sends Silva stumbling backwards across the training ground. Sparks fly as their weapons clash again, Kyle's renewed vigor catching Silva off guard. Silva grits his teeth, barely managing to hold back the unexpectedly ferocious offensive. Kyle's eyes are wide with pure focus, his entire being concentrated on this single, decisive moment. The sheer power of his attack forces Silva's feet to skid backwards across the dirt. A piece of Silva's armor shatters, but Kyle knows this is just a self-made illusion. Despite his momentary success, he admits to himself that it's no use. He doesn't stand a chance. However, he vows to get strong enough to beat the captain and fulfill his promise. Suddenly, a dark burning energy appears before him, asking what it is he truly wants. Kyle's eyes widen in pure shock as he is confronted by the mysterious dark energy. Suddenly, a mysterious hooded figure appears, asking the young boy if he desires power. Completely bewildered by the sudden appearance, Kyle stammers, trying to identify the stranger. The figure continues, specifically offering him the power to finally defeat that man. He then recognizes her, hesitantly asking if she is the captain's little sister. The two of them stand facing each other in silence on the empty, dusty training grounds. However, his attention is abruptly drawn to a noise in the shadows, and he yells out in alarm. He peers into the darkness with a tense and cautious expression, his guard now fully raised. From the shadows, a second, identical hooded figure emerges, dismissing his imagination. Stumbling back in utter shock, he demands to know who the two mysterious figures are. One of the figures simply tells him that his previous assumption about her was completely wrong. He insists he's not wrong, pointing out that her voice and build are identical to her sister. Kyle stares at her with a knowing look, now completely certain of her true identity. Suddenly, the girl erupts in a fit of pure frustration, screaming in annoyance. Ripping off her hood, she complains that he has completely ruined the mood she was trying to set. She then dismisses him, saying she's busy and to make it quick if he needs something. With a condescending tone, she mocks his intense training, calling it nothing but clumsy dancing. He shouts back that he's giving it his all, and she calls him a typical boy, desperate for strength. Intrigued by his desperation, she offers to show him something good and tells him to follow her. The scene then shifts to a quiet, unfamiliar building, their mysterious new destination. Kyle nervously follows Akatsuki to a secluded spot, wondering why she brought him here alone. She teases him, saying it's too bad if he was hoping for some kind of sweet romantic moment. Her tone turns ominous as she tells him he is about to experience something he'll consider a living hell. With dark energy swirling around her, she points at him and clarifies, pure hardship. A massive swirling vortex of dark energy suddenly erupts behind her, much to Kyle's shock. He screams in alarm, mistakenly identifying the vortex as a rift and questioning its sudden appearance. However, Akatsuki corrects him, stating it's not a barbaric rift but a more refined portal. She explains it is advanced spatial transfer technology that allows for instantaneous long-distance travel. Kyle is baffled by the unfamiliar magic, but she dismisses his confusion as unimportant. She cuts to the chase, demanding to know if he truly wants to get stronger or not. Calling him dense, she condescendingly questions if he's really the hero who is supposed to save the world. Completely stunned by her words, Kyle can only stammer the word hero in utter disbelief. She explains an incredible experience awaits him on the other side, one that will let him beat her brother. A wary but intrigued Kyle repeats her words, contemplating the mysterious offer before him. With a bright and cheerful smile, she encourages him, saying he'll have to go and see for himself. She then casually tosses him a large, fully packed backpack filled with supplies for his journey. Kyle fumbles to catch the heavy bag, completely shocked by the sudden turn of events. She explains it's the bare minimum he'll need, but he finds the amount of gear overwhelming. Dismissing his concerns, she shoves him forward, yelling at him to hurry up and go. Without another word, she forcefully pushes him into the portal as he screams in pure panic. Screaming in terror, Kyle is sucked into the swirling dark portal, which promptly vanishes behind him. Leaning against her sister, Akatsuki complains that her big brother works his little sister far too hard. However, Silva appears from behind, casually asking her if this outcome is what she truly wanted. With a confident grin and a thumbs up, he calls her big brother, showing he was watching and approves. Meanwhile, Kyle cries out as he is violently ejected from the portal, crashing hard into a cloud of white. He lands alone in a fierce blizzard, surrounded by nothing but snow in his survival gear. Shivering from the intense cold, he clutches himself, completely shocked by the sudden freezing environment. His situation worsens as two massive, shadowy beasts, a bear and a wolf, immediately appear before him. His face is frozen in a mask of pure terror, unable to process the overwhelming and immediate danger. He finds himself completely isolated in a vast snow-covered mountain range, wondering where he is. The next chapter begins with a monstrous growl, cutting back to the unit's training and a furious face. Commander Brown is shown gritting his teeth in a fit of pure, unadulterated rage and indignation. He storms into an office, surprised to find someone there, demanding to know what's going on. The person at the desk, Silva, calmly tells the enraged commander to simply look at this. He presents a newspaper detailing serious corruption allegations and favors granted to specific contractors. Another article exposes sexual harassment by a superior officer and the misogyny still lingering in the military. Silva watches with a knowing look as he lays out the scandalous and damning newspaper articles. The furious commander demands to know if Pierce has any idea who would spread such baseless rumors. Silva simply looks at his gloved hand, sighing as if he is bored by this kind of thing. With a sharp and confident gaze, he retorts that he has nothing but ideas about who is responsible. Using the syndicate's communication device, Silva places a call to an unknown party. He casually asks his contact for a little favor regarding the mastermind of the recent chaos. It's revealed he had the syndicate leak all the damaging information to the newspapers. However, he knows the cornered commander won't honestly admit to all his crimes. Playing innocent, Silva feigns ignorance and asks the commander about the truth of the articles. The commander explodes in a furious rage, vehemently screaming that all of it is lies. As Brown storms off, Silva correctly guesses he is going to see the victim from the harassment case. Watching from the window, he calmly sips his drink, satisfied that the commander's downfall is imminent. He knows the final phase of his plan is now completely up to her. Looking out over the military complex, he's confident he just needs to act according to his plan. At the same time, Kyle was sent to the mountains. The scene shifts to a bustling city street. Fyrus is shown being quickly ushered down a dark and secluded alleyway by another woman. The narrative reveals she is another pawn in Silva's grand scheme, and she seems annoyed. She internally laments that after 4 days on her important mission, she has achieved 0 results. With a worried expression, she looks ahead, realizing she is in big trouble at this rate. She knows the newspapers are filled with scandals, and other underlings must also be investigating him. She realizes this mission is a competition, and she'll be kicked out if she comes in last. However, her expression brightens as she raises her spyglass, believing her chance has finally arrived. Through her scope, she finally spots her target, Commander Brown, accompanied by his bodyguards. She watches intently as he enters a high-class, members-only bar with his entourage. Fyrus observes the situation, sensing that something fishy is going on inside the exclusive bar. She quickly finds the bar's back entrance. noting its lax security and realizing this is her chance. Using one of her new spy tools, she begins to carefully pick the lock on the back door. As she works, she daydreams about the praise her big bro will surely give her for succeeding. With a final satisfying click, the lock gives way and the door swings open for her. She cautiously peeks her head through the now open doorway, scanning the area for any danger. Slipping inside, she finds herself in a dark and cluttered storage room filled with boxes. After a quick scan, she confirms the messy room is completely empty and seemingly safe for now. She marvels at the state of the room, surprised that such a fancy establishment could be so messy. Her investigation is suddenly interrupted by a voice from the ceiling, pleading not to let anyone in. The mysterious voice continues its desperate plea, begging her to keep the door shut at all costs. Suddenly, a figure crashes through the ceiling, shattering crates as they land hard on the floor. The unexpected intruder plummets through the wreckage, sending debris flying everywhere. Terrified by the commotion, Fierce hides, her heart pounding as she realizes someone else is in the room. Just then, two men burst through the door, demanding to know what caused the loud noise. They survey the destroyed room but find it completely empty, wondering what could have happened. Hidden under a table, a relieved Fierce sighs, realizing she was almost discovered in the chaos. With the immediate danger gone, she refocuses her attention, preparing to find her original target. To continue her search undetected, she begins to crawl stealthily through a dark ventilation shaft. As she crawls, she suddenly looks up with a start, her expression a mixture of surprise and alarm. Continuing her infiltration, she crawls stealthily through the dark and narrow ventilation shaft. She stops, pressing her ear to the grate, believing her hunch about the commander's location is correct. Peering through the vent, she spots Commander Brown below, confirming her target is in the room. With a confident smile, she vows to bring back a huge scoop for her beloved Big Bro. Below, the commander enjoys a drink, completely oblivious to the spy hiding just above him. Furious struggles to hear their conversation, pressing her ear hard against the cold metal vent. Realizing it's too quiet, she reaches for a listening device, frustrated that she can't hear them. But suddenly, the ceiling tile gives way, and she crashes through into the room below. She lets out a cry of surprise as the ground completely disappears from beneath her. Her unexpected entrance creates a massive cloud of dust and debris upon her chaotic impact. Dazed from the fall, she sits amidst the rubble, wondering what just happened to her. She looks up to find herself face to face with a stunned Commander Brown and a mysterious woman. The commander's eyes are wide with pure shock and absolute fury at the sudden interruption. Realizing her cover is completely blown, Fierce stares up in terror, knowing she's in big trouble. The scene shifts to a dark alley, where a desperate cry for help echoes from a nearby building. The source of the cry is revealed to be a large and ominous mansion shrouded in darkness. Inside, a long and dark stone staircase leads down into a gloomy, unwelcoming basement. A figure wrapped in a sheet is violently thrown down the stairs, landing in a heap at the bottom. The figure is revealed to be a battered and bruised Fierce, struggling to remain conscious after the fall. A hand roughly grabs her face and a menacing voice demands that the little girl answer him. A furious Commander Brown grabs Fierce, demanding to know who is behind her investigation. Imprisoned in a dungeon, Fierce insists she acted alone, hoping to sell information to the newspapers for money. The commander furiously screams at her, refusing to believe her story and demanding to know who gave the orders. Crying in terror, she maintains her innocence, swearing that no one ordered her to spy on him. Unconvinced, the commander turns to his subordinate and orders him to hand over her confiscated belongings. The guard dumps her bag, revealing the advanced spy tools she was using for her mission. He shoves the spyglass in her face, aggressively demanding that she explain what the device is. With wide, fearful eyes, Fierce desperately lies, claiming that she made the advanced tool herself. Enraged by her obvious lie, he smashes the spyglass against the stone wall, shouting that it's impossible. Seeing no other way, the commander turns to his guard and orders him to arrange the usual preparations. With a menacing sneer, he calls her stubborn and vows to teach her body a lesson to get the truth. A tray is brought in, displaying an array of intimidating and sinister-looking torture instruments. The terrifying sight of the torture tools causes Fierce to let out a blood-curdling scream of pure horror. The commander sadistically looks over the instruments, wondering which toy he should play with this time. He discards one tool he used previously and selects another, preparing to begin his brutal interrogation. Holding the cruel instrument to her face, he tells the terrified girl that they will start by having some fun. Just as he is about to begin, his attention is suddenly drawn away by an unseen presence. Annoyed by the interruption, he orders his guards to leave the room and keep watch out front. With his subordinates now gone, the commander turns his full, menacing attention back to his helpless captive. A terrifying grin spreads across his face as he declares that now there will be no interruptions. The commander's face twists into a sadistic grin, relishing the fact he can enjoy this as much as he wants. He gives her one last chance to talk, promising to spare her the pain if she reveals who is behind this. A terrified Ferris begs him not to hurt her, but he coldly demands she speak his name. However, she finds her resolve, screaming through her tears that she will never tell him anything. Her defiant shout is met with a look of pure, unadulterated rage from the furious commander. With a chilling calmness, he states that if she refuses to cooperate, then it simply can't be helped. He then reveals his true sadistic nature, admitting it doesn't matter to him whether she answers or not. The commander confesses that watching a naive girl like her cry and scream in pain is unbearably thrilling for him. He sadistically encourages her to scream as much as she likes, knowing no one will hear her. As he prepares to strike, a defiant Ferris braces herself for the agonizing pain to come. Internally, she resolves to endure the pain, the fear, and the humiliation for her mission. She holds on to the belief that if she remains silent, her big bro Silva will surely defeat him. With tears in her eyes but her resolve firm, she vows not to let out a single sound. Frustrated by her silence, the commander grumbles that he will not let her have her way. Her mind flashes back to a memory of a woman telling her what to do if she ever faces hardship. The woman in her memory told her to try chanting a specific phrase in her time of need. She was promised that this special chant would surely come to her aid when she needed it most. Clinging to this memory, Ferris begins to quietly mutter a series of strange, seemingly random names. The commander is completely baffled, demanding to know what those strange words are that she is chanting. Dismissing her muttering as nonsense, he prepares to finally begin his brutal and sadistic torture. A hulking man named Tanis taunts his captives, wondering how long their stubbornness will last. However, his sadistic amusement is cut short by a sudden, jarring noise from elsewhere in the building. In another room, one of his subordinates watches in disbelief as a solid stone wall begins to buckle. An armored soldier then smashes through the wall, sending the shock thug flying amidst the rubble. The entire wall shatters into pieces from the sheer force of the unexpected intrusion. Before Tanis can react to the commotion, a hand grabs his head from behind with lightning speed. He is left standing dazed amidst the bodies of his unconscious comrades, completely bewildered. Sweating profusely, he spins around and yells into the chaos, demanding to know what's wrong. A massive cloud of dust and smoke billows out from a now demolished doorway. An armored boot then steps through the settling dust, revealing an imposing figure. Tanis's eyes widen in absolute terror as the figure calmly apologizes for the late-night intrusion. A young captive girl looks up with hope and recognition, whispering the word, "Commander." Placing a hand on his chest, the intruder identifies himself as part of the Holy Empire Eternia army. He then specifies that he is a member of the 3rd Special Operations Unit, towering over the thug. Overwhelmed with fear, Tanis immediately stammers that he is an ever-loyal subordinate. The armored figure stands before him, an undeniable symbol of absolute and overwhelming power. Holding up a document, the man formally introduces himself as Silva Pierce.